hold you guys up today. I'm sure you have tons to do and so forth. But I wanted to start off by saying thank you all for joining us today. This has been a long time coming. It seems like due to COVID, many things have changed and we have just had to adapt to it. This meeting would typically take place face to face, but unfortunately it has to be virtual. So I'm still thankful that we can all still join, and I appreciate you taking the time out to join us today. Myself and the MCSAB team greatly appreciates MDE's willingness to support us and get us through this back to school with some updates and just some valuable information. It definitely, as they say, takes a village and a very strong partnership in the realm of education. So for those of you from MDE that are here and are present, thank you so very much. And also to our school leaders, we greatly appreciate you taking out the time to join us today as we move through getting some updates and information from MDE as well as the MCSAB team. So welcome again. I will now, Dr. K, if you have some thoughts to share as you welcome. Nope, she's shaking her head.
No, I'm good. Just thanks again for everybody to being here today. We appreciate you taking your time and looking forward to the information from MDE and hearing from you guys. Good to see you guys.
Great. So today's back to school meeting, we are going to move through the agenda that I sent to you all. So we'll have some representatives jumping in and jumping out as well too as they present this information to you. Also, if you can't join for a particular time throughout the agenda, this meeting will be recorded and the resources will also be posted to our MCSAB website. Jordan is fabulous, and I'm sure she is going to move very swiftly in getting this information and video posted for you all. She does a tremendous job getting that information on our website. So you can always go back to the resources as well as the video to watch later if there's something that you feel like you missed or just to catch up on. So do note that as well. Also, throughout this information today, if there's ever a time that you do have a question, you can definitely place that into the chat box, and we will, the MCSAB team, will give an opportunity for questions as well, or if you would like us to ask that question for sure. So please feel free to utilize the chat box throughout today's meeting as well. Are there any questions before we get started? Perfect. So the Office of Federal Programs, they're up first, so we're a few minutes ahead of our agenda, which is okay. But I do see Mr. Raspberry and I see Ms. Campbell, both are here with us. So thank you all again for joining us today. So beginning first would be the Office of Federal Programs with some updates and information to share. If you guys do have information that we need to put up, please let us know. We can allow share screen if you do, or if not, Jordan can assist with that or myself.
Good afternoon. My name is Judy Nelson, and I'm in the Office of Federal Programs. And so we want to do a little switcheroo where the Office of Grants Management goes first. And we do have a PowerPoint presentation. And then after Alicia present from the Office of Grants Management, then I will talk about federal program, if that's okay.
That works for us.
Okay. So Alicia, I'm about to share my screen so that I can pull up the PowerPoint.
Okay. And Quentin, if you want to go ahead and get us kicked off, since both of our presentations kind of connected, that's fine with me.
Okay, sounds good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Quentin Ransberg. We've made a bit of a shift in the Office of Federal Programs, and Judy Nelson is now the Executive Director for Federal Programs. I have been moved to work across the agency to focus on equity, and that spans from policy to programs and supports for schools and children. So I will be connected to federal programs, but the day-to-day will be Judy Nelson, our new executive director. And most of you have worked with Judy. If you had to do anything with MCAPS, she's been the face of federal programs these last couple of years because I was on the charter board and I could not touch those programs as well. So we'll just move through our presentation. We'll begin with our mission and vision of the department, and that's to create a world-class educational system that gives students the knowledge and skills to be successful in college and the workforce and to flourish as parents and citizens. Our mission is to provide leadership through the development of policy and accountability systems so that all students are prepared to compete in the global community. We have 6 board goals, and they touch our work and they touch your work as you begin to implement these federal grant programs under ESEA. Number 1, ensuring that all students are proficient and showing growth in all assessed areas. Every student graduates from high school and they're college and career ready. Every student has access, or every child has access to high quality early childhood programs. Every school has effective teachers and leaders. Every community effectively uses a world-class data system to improve student outcomes, and every school and district is rated a C or higher. At this time, I'll turn this over to our grants manager, Ms. Elisha Campbell. She leads our work in the Office of Grants Management. We could not make it in federal programs without our grants manager, and I know that you are a bit different than some of our other LEAs, but we can't emphasize enough how important it is for the federal programs, program side, as well as the federal programs fiscal side to work together knee to knee, arm in arm in order to implement these programs for kids in Mississippi. Ms. Campbell.
Thank you, Quentin, and thank you all for the invitation to speak to you all today. Last year, I had a bit of an accident leaving the meeting. So I always remember our charter school board meeting.
Well, that's unfortunate that it has not a nice memory, Alicia.
No, it was good. We had a good training, and I guess I was just so excited I missed my step. So anyway, Judy, if you proceed to the next slide. The Grants Management Office was established in 2017. We created the office. We pulled all of the fiscal staff, and I'm gonna move my look at you all. We pulled all of the fiscal staff under one umbrella to kind of serve as the fiscal arm of managing the grant programs. And so we have under our umbrella, we work with the Office of Federal Programs, the Office of Special Education, the Office of Career and Technical Education. And so as the grants come into the Department of Education, we assist with the award phases and the post-award phases. So the reporting of expenditures, assisting districts with requesting funds if needed. We're a part of that particular part of our grant management. We also do the allocation for the school districts. You may see emails that come from us to request certain documents, and I think we'll kind of get into that as we move through the presentation. So here we just wanted to show you all what the actual phases of a grant, the life cycle of a grant. There's a pre-award phase where we're heavily involved in determining eligibility on those grantees who are eligible to receive funds. We actually distribute the grant funds utilizing the MCAP system for all of your federal program awards and your special education programs. And we also handle, as I stated before, the post-award phase. We're doing a closeout, the evaluation of the program. We also assist with the monitoring of these programs as well. Here, we just like to remind you, whenever you're researching to obtain an answer regarding questions that you may have regarding our grants, this is the hierarchy. So the statute is always your first step to review your program requirements. Then you will look at regulations. The regulations are there to provide a little more detail as to what the statute may state. The non-regulatory guidance is really helpful because the non-regulatory guidance provides FAQs that will provide answers to questions that you may have. And then if we need to get a specific answer to a question that we haven't received guidance on, the Department of Education may send a Dear Colleague letter that we can rely upon to make decisions. And then sometimes we receive direct communication via phone calls or emails that we can use to support the decisions that have been made. So you may or may not be familiar with, some are. There are certain regulations that we are required to ensure that we are meeting when we're allocating funds to charter schools. Here you see that in December of 1999, final regulations were released stating that these allocations that are received from the MDE on our federal grant funds, we must take into consideration new or expanding charter schools. And so when we look at expanding charter schools, we are actually looking to see whether or not you have increased a grade or you are increasing your capacity of enrollment. And usually that is tied to your contract that has been approved by the Charter Authorizer Board. So we're looking at that information. Should your charter school fall into the need for expanding, then your federal award allocation for that particular year will be increased based on the projected numbers. So if you need to or would like to or interested in reading the non-regulatory guidance, it provides us with a chart that we have to use and some details as to how we're to actually award the funds to the charter school. So those of you that have received the FY21 preliminary allocation during October, we will actually take a look to see if your district has significantly expanded. There's a form that's required to be completed. We review that form, and if you have are considered to be significantly expanding, then your allocation will increase based on that information, and we'll plug it into our formula and determine what your increase to your allocation is. And I think there was a question.
Glenn had a question, it looks like.
Will the expansion rules also apply to ELA and ESSER given they are federal grants? So they will not apply to ELA because, as you know, ELA, the program actually, you have to obligate by September 11th and it has to be liquidated by December. And that ELA program is actually not funding from the Department of Education, it's funding from the Department of Treasury. But as for ESSER, ESSER does have a requirement for the significant expansion, so we will be applying that process that's outlined in the ESSER non-regulatory guidance to ensure that you all receive additional funding should your charter school be deemed to be significantly expanded. Great question. All right, so for our charter school, which was LaFleur Academy, LaFleur Legacy, is that right? We were able to go ahead and create a preliminary allocation for the new charter school this particular year. So they already have their preliminary allocation. Once we do the final allocation, there may be a slight increase, but we won't know until we actually get our final award from the federal government. And so we don't get that award until October 1st. So we have over just a month and we will know, we'll walk through the allocations, and then we'll be able to release our final awards that will have the necessary adjustments for the new as well as the significantly expanding charters. Okay. All right. And so typically, you all have seen, or most of you have seen that charter school eligibility count form. We named it the CS01 form. We usually ask for this form early on in the year so that we can prepare the preliminary allocations. They are typically done between April and May to allow for charters and districts to be able to complete their applications and have them submitted prior to the July 1 start date of the federal award. So typically we're working to get those allocations out, and the Office of Federal Programs is working to review applications. That form is used as stated for the enrollment count for the new charters, as well as it will determine the final amount with a significant increase. What's important about the form is to make sure you denote where your students' home school would have been. We have to know where the kids are coming from so that we ensure that the charter school receives the portion of funding from that particular home school district. So we must know where the students would have attended in the public school setting so that we make sure that we're pulling the right counts and allocation portion to create the charter school allocation. You can also revise the form if needed. There's a section in there to tell us why you need to revise the form. But all those forms, if not, I'm not mistaken, they're flowing through and getting approval from Dr. Kamacharya, and I believe Vonda is also reviewing those forms for us to make sure that we have accurate information. This information is also checked by the state auditor's office. So when they come in to audit federal programs, they're actually looking at the forms and reviewing to make sure that we have all the appropriate approvals on the form. So very important document. And here is the form. And as stated, the home school district is expected to be in the far left column. And then we just simply ask for you to identify the total number of kids at each private school. So I don't know, and Vonda, you may be able to speak to, are you all collecting it individually and then creating one form? Are we doing it separate?
Yes, they will submit their individual forms into our platform of Epicenter, and I take those forms and create a combined form with the districts on it, and then I'll send to you the individual forms like I did in the past with the combined information on this form.
Yes, okay, good. So we see that we're all working together to make sure everything is as accurate as possible. And here at the top, you'll see Vonda will be able to select if it's an initial submission that's due by March 30th. So she'll ask for the information from the schools regarding your upcoming enrollment. So we ask for the March enrollment so that we can calculate a preliminary allocation. Also, if there's a new charter school where we ask that the charter authorizer board submit that information to us by June 1st. If a charter school is determined to be significantly increasing, then we need that information by October 1st, and then that charter school will utilize the month 1 enrollment. And also, as stated previously, if there's any revision that's required for any reason, then you're able to use this form also to submit the information. And I think we've been having a good success with the form. I don't think we've had any issues. But if you do, then just let us know and we can take a look at the form and make any corrections that we need to. I think we're expanding, so I already see I probably need to drop leg LaFleur Legacy.
In there.
Yeah, so I'll make a note to do that. All right, and so also if a charter school is significantly increasing, there's a second form that's required. It's the CS02 form, and that form is used to capture the grade levels or, you know, the expansion of the capacity that the school will have. So I think the next slide will show you what this form looks like. Yes. So it's actually on 2 screens. So this is the top part of the form, just some general information that we're asking for. And then the second half of the form will ask for you to actually supply us with the enrollment numbers by grade. And so we'll be able to take a look and see that you've added a grade or the expansion of capacity has happened within the grades.
I wonder, does anybody have any questions about that before we move on? It'd be nice to hear from the schools. I didn't see anything in the chat pop up. Does anybody have a question from the schools? I don't see any chat, so I think we're okay. No questions.
Okay, sorry about the phone. This was, I believe, this is the special education form. You see it's very similar to what we use on the federal program side. But SPED needs to know the full enrollment and also the special education students. We will also, I'll talk with Michael on this. Michael Gibbons is the grants manager under grants management that works with the special education programs. But we need to add or create a second page for the additional charter schools that we have. But he, his information is, you can go to the next slide, Judy. For the existing charters, he requests the information by April 1st. And the data point that's used is the month 1 data from the current school year. And then if a charter is significantly expanded, they have to provide the approved contract for expansion counts by grade. So we, in federal programs, we call this is it live and in color. This is our Bible for our grant programs. This is called EDGAR. You may hear it called the Uniform Grant Guidance, the UGG, the Uniform Administrative Requirements. But these list all of the requirements for federal grant programs. Or you may hear it called 2 CFR Part 200. That is the official regulatory name for the Uniform Grant Guidance. But this document provides us with anything from when an obligation is considered, do I have to make application, when is a revision required, things like that is located within this EDGAR document. We have a training, a big training that we conduct during the spring. We combine all of federal programs, special education, career and technical education, along with fiscal personnel from the districts and the charter schools. We bring in a law group from Washington, D.C., Broomstein and Manasquet. They walk through highlighting key areas that we all need to be concerned and remember when we're administering our grant programs. So they come during February, March is when we typically have that conference, but also for new federal programs directors, SPED directors, CTE directors, and business managers. We normally have a fall training where Broomstein will come and they will kind of get on a 101 level of the grants management and the uniform grant guidance. So I believe we're planning one in October, Judy, is that correct? Judy or Quentin?
Yes, that's correct. I'm sorry. October the 12th and 13th is our new director's training.
Yeah, so we would invite you all to attend that training, because it's going to go through some things that, you know, some things you know, but every time I've listened to them, and I probably have attended a Broomstein and Monastic conference for, I know, over 10 years, but every time I hear it, there's something else that goes off in my head, like, I didn't think of that, you know. And so you're able to sit in the training and flag your book. You can highlight your book. You can write notes in your book and use it as a good reference tool when you're administering these federal grant programs. Some things that we want to make sure that you all remember or that you know about. When we come to monitor, we have to make sure we're following what's in EDGAR, the regulations, and ensure that every grantee is following what's outlined in law. So these are some of the policies and/or procedures that each entity receiving federal funds must have in place. And you can see that we've denoted what sections in the UGG. You can go and read and see what is actually required. You must have a written cash management procedure, which simply means that you will not request reimbursement for items that you don't have an expenditure for. You will not request funds and just have cash sitting on hand that you haven't actually spent. So what process do you take to ensure that you are going to meet that requirement? Written allowability procedures. What is the process that you use to ensure that purchases are allowable that you charge into your grant program? Written conflicts of interest policies, ensuring that you don't have conflicts of interest when you're having contracts with vendors. Written procurement procedures. This is a very, very heavy one. Making sure that you're following the procurement procedures. Earlier this year, Dr. Kamacharia, she sent out an email that was very, very good that you can take and actually develop your process and procedures, ensuring that you're meeting everything that was sent out earlier. Was it March, Dr. Kamacharia?
I think so.
Yeah. So that document will help you develop what the process is when you're ordering goods, making sure you're meeting those thresholds that were established in that memo that went out. Also, if you are going to submit or request any contracts and you're evaluating proposals, what does that look like? How do you select who's going to receive it? You need to have a written process for that. Also very important is your travel policy. Make sure you have something written for how many miles you're gonna reimburse if somebody stayed overnight. How many miles, you know, must they travel before they're allowed to spend the night? What is the travel rate reimbursement? Things like that. You need to have a policy in place. What documents are required for pre-approval for out-of-town travel? Things like that. That needs to be developed in a policy. One of the biggest areas that we have issues with monitoring is equipment management. So you need to have procedures with how you're going to ensure that equipment is maintained and it is safeguarded from theft. What are the procedures if an item is stolen? You need to create these processes and procedures to make sure you're following the regulations for equipment. Time and effort policies, this is another big area. Need to make sure that all of our time that we are putting in on our grant programs matches our payroll. We have to make sure that we're not assessing more money to a program that didn't get enough effort and time from us as individuals. So you want to make sure that the payroll records match to the actual time that you have worked on these particular programs. So you want to have the processes in place regarding how you're gonna complete semi-annual certifications or personnel activity reports. And so if you don't know what those are, come to the training in October. You will hear a whole lot more about it. So Bernstein is very good when it comes to time and effort in reviewing that information to make sure we're on task to meet the requirements of the EDGAR.
Ms. Campbell, if
Sure.
before you move to the next slide, can we go back? Can you elaborate on the importance or the consequences that could happen if these procedures are not in place and if they're not followed?
Okay.
I just want folks to understand the gravity of all of this.
So if you don't have these things in place, quite naturally, when we look for implementation, there will be findings. If you don't follow appropriate, ensuring that the costs are allowable to a program, there are question cost findings. And if there's a question cost finding tied to your monitoring report or your single audit, then those funds have to be paid back to the department. You cannot use federal funds. You must utilize state or local or any other funding source that your charter school will have. So it's very important to make sure that you understand the rules, also that you follow exactly what you have in your policies and your procedures. Because when an auditor comes or a monitor, they're going to read your process and your procedures and your policies, and they're going to want to see, okay, what do these procedures say that the steps are? Let me see the steps that you've actually done. If you don't follow them, then that's a fine. So it's always important, even though we create these procedures, that you make sure that you go back, review them, make it an annual review process to make sure you're continuing to do what you said you were going to do. But the biggest thing is that if you don't follow these things, then the charter school will be you would just have to pay the money back. And we don't want any of that. We don't like writing findings. We want everything districts to do the best that they can do. So that's why we have the training annually, and to make sure that everybody is made aware of what needs to be done and constantly reminding you of what you need to have in place. All right, so some useful resources. We talked about the Uniform Grant Guidance and EDGAR. We talked a little bit about statutes earlier and the regulations, program guidance. Also, there may be some state rules that you need to be aware of, as well as policies and procedures. A couple of years ago, once the Uniform Grant Guidance was created, we heard the cry of many, and we created a decision tree. Although some pieces of this does not apply to the charter school, it may just be helpful to kind of see what decisions do you need to make regarding each type of purchase. And you may have to go out, Judy, if it doesn't work enough. And I see Michael has joined us. Michael, if you wave to everybody, Michael is the grant manager for special education, if you all can see him. But he works very closely with Robin Lamonis and Margaret Elmer in ensuring that the SPED funds are managed appropriately. So if you want to be able to see the uniform grant guides, remember I said it was different names, but in green, the official name is the uniform administrative requirements. But Judy, this is the top. So if you click on that, and anything in the square, you can actually click on it. It will take you directly to the guidance. But this provides the federal requirements for the procurement standards. Again, it is in the orange Edgar book, but if you just want to click on or have a readily available visual of it electronically, then you're able to click on those different color squares and it will take you directly to it. I don't want to get too much into this because I think it might end up a little bit confusing, but I'm going to tell you to refer back to the memo that was sent out in March, and that will help you a whole lot with determining where you need to go with purchasing.
Mhm.
The charter schools and the school districts, the purchasing is totally different. And so that decision tree was created for the LEAs because they have so many things that they have to make sure that they are abiding by with state law. And so that was created for them. When I get some spare time, I'll create one for the charter schools. So
Alicia, that would be fabulous.
But that is basically all I wanted to share today. Judy may get into some things that will are also a part of grants management, but she's very capable of discussing MCAP. So we'll let her go ahead and begin.
Thank you, Alicia.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon again, and thank you for allowing us to come and present this information. As always, if you need any additional assistance or have any additional questions, please reach out to us. And I think that we have designated a point person to assist the charter schools in our office, and his name is Mr. John Woodard. And he's been assisting a lot of the charter schools with their application, especially their FY21 applications. So we just designated one person in our office to handle the charter schools to cut down confusion and so that there's some consistency, you know, from LEAs to charter schools because it's very unique. So Mr. John Woodard would be the point person. First, we want to talk about MCAPs. That's our driving platform in MCAPs, in federal programs. And MCAP stands for the Mississippi Comprehensive Automated Performance-Based System. And it accommodates various programs within and outside the Office of Federal Programs. I think Alicia talked about SPED is a part of MCAPs. MCAPs currently holds our consolidated application, which deals with Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, Title V. We're getting ready to onboard 21st Century as well as our homeless. And 21st Century and our homeless programs are our competitive programs. And so we're getting ready to onboard those into our MCAP system. MCAPs have three main components. It's the planning, which is what we call the LEA plan, and it also have the school-wide plans. There's the funding application where you talk about the different types of budget. One thing about the planning tool and the funding application, it does meet together with the LEA plan overview, where you talk about those different funding sources, and that's directly tied to the funding application. But the planning tool has a lot of the narrative questions that deals with the instructional components of the plan. And then we have the request for funds That's where where districts will go in and complete their requests for funds on a monthly basis. And usually those requests for funds are done before the 12th of every month, with the exception of December. December changes from year to year, depending on what date the Office of School Financial Services set. But mostly all the other months is the 12th of the month, unless it falls on a weekend. And if it falls on a weekend, then it's actually the Monday after. So if the 12th is on a Saturday, then the deadline is going to be that Monday.
And also in December, the deadline is typically around the 8th of December, and that's so that funds can be transferred prior to schools being out for the Christmas break.
One main important form that you need to complete every year or anytime that there's a shift in personnel is your user access administrator form. And so you will need to make sure that you update that. Maria was our point person, but now it's Greg Smith. But anytime that there's a shift in your user access, then you will have to complete that form. And the user access is the person that's designated to grant access to the other personnel within that district or within the charter school. So that person would be the person that give access to, say for instance, the business manager, or the superintendent, or the person that have to put in the data for the plan. So your user access administrator is the person that's within the district, and that person assigns the different roles for MCAPS. And as you can see, there's various roles. So even though that you may be assigned various roles within the system, so say for instance, one person can be the LEA plan view, LEA plan data entry. That person also can be the business manager. That person can be also assigned the superintendent role. So we have had instances where you have individuals that have multiple roles. And as you can see, if you're assigned the consolidated update, you only can make edits. But then as the superintendent, you can actually approve. So this chart kind of outlines who has what roles can edit and what roles can actually approve. But mind you, if you have multiple roles attached, you only can escalate the application one time. So say for instance, if a person approves the application as the business manager, then that person cannot come back and approve the application as the superintendent. You only can approve that application one time. So it's very important to know that, that's a part of that internal controls. So even though you may be assigned multiple roles, you will not be able to escalate that application more than once, okay? A lot of times in our application, we see administrative costs, and we want districts to be aware of the maximum amount for each of the programs. So for instance, Title I, there's a 20% cap for admin. For Title II, it's going to be your restricted indirect cost rate. For Title III, it's 2%. Title IV is 2%. And then Title V is your restricted indirect cost rate. And so when we're talking about admin, we're talking about personnel that deals with the administration of the grant. So like your federal programs director, that's a part of your admin. We've seen instances where a bookkeeper could be a part of the admin. So that's what we talk about, administrative costs. And usually in your budget, that function is 2330. So if you take an administrative cost, please be aware of these caps for each of the programs. And then also the administrative cost cap, it does include indirect costs. So some people might take, like say for instance, the federal program salary as the admin cost, and then also take indirect costs for the actual program. that two combined cannot exceed 20% if you're doing Title I. So when we're talking about the cap, it also includes your indirect costs that you're taking. So when we're looking at FY19 and FY20 revisions, actually because of COVID, you actually have an extension of FY19 grant fund. Usually those grants are FY19 in a normal period, you would have to obligate those funds by September 30th this year, and then you would have to expend those funds by December. However, because of COVID, we have an extra year for FY19. Is that correct, Alicia? We have an extra year?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So technically for FY19 and FY20, you will have until September 30th, 2021 to obligate those funds, and to have those expended will be December 2021. So that's for both FY19 and FY20. When you're looking at revisions, we also think about, look at your transfers, and a lot of the charter schools transfer Title II funds into Title I. They also transfer a lot of the Title IV funds into Title I. So once you do all the transfers into Title I, that amount, where that 20% is calculated, is those additional amounts that when everything is added together. So it's after the transfer that we talk about the admin and the admin cap. There is a district set aside, usually with the charter school, because a lot of the allocations are not above the 500,000, so you don't have that parental involvement required set aside for parental involvement. But then you do have a set aside for homeless. So we require all districts to set aside at least $100 for homeless, and that should be done on your district set aside page. But that's the only required set aside that we have from our office. Now, if your allocation is more than 500,000, then you do have a required 1% for parental involvement. But I don't think there's any charter schools that have more than that at this time. Your PPA page, please make sure that you pay attention to your PPA page. You have that plus or minus $10 that's remaining, that's allowed. So that's your PPA page. And we really don't have to worry about ranking and serving because usually your charter school is one school. And so we just ask that your majority of your budget be budgeted at the school level and not at the district level for reporting purposes. Please be mindful that your budget always have to be zero when you're looking at your budget and MCAPs with the funding application. We don't want to have anything left in the budget, and we definitely do not want to have a negative amount in the budget. Very important with your personnel, your head counts and FTEs must match, and your head counts are always whole numbers. So like you can have one person, so the head count is, say for instance, if you have a literacy coach working at the school or at the charter school, that person would count as one, but that's, say for instance, that person is just part-time, where the FTE is going to be 0.5 based upon what is paid from federal funds. So if 50% of that salary is paid from Title I funds, then the FTE will be 0.5. Okay. So when we're talking about personnel and head counts and FTEs, only in regards to what is being paid with federal funds, okay? If you're talking about supplements, so say for instance, I know that sometimes districts have PD on the weekends or PD after hours, and they want to pay teachers for that time. We call that supplements. So that would not be a part of your personnel salary because those are just added, I wouldn't say added bonuses, but that's just a supplement in a sense where there's just added funds, but it does not support the full salary of those particular teachers. So we wouldn't consider them on the personnel page. Okay, so your supplements, which is like PD, I think, mentorship. We've had that a lot. If a person is getting paid to be a mentor to new teachers, then you would count that in the personnel. Your plan relationship pages, the remaining amount is always $0. Again, this is the only component of the funding application that's tied to the plan, and it's in the LEA plan overview under the funding source. So you always have to make sure that that amount is $0. Very important that you check your program assurances to make sure that all those check boxes are checked. We have issues with Title IV. Title IV has the 3 top that's required, but then the 3 bottom, it just depends on the amount. If a charter school received more than $30,000, then you would check all 3 boxes. But if you don't, then you will only check the box that applies to what you're spending your Title IV dollars on. So if you're only doing well-rounded, you would just check well-rounded. But if you're doing well-rounded and safe and healthy, then you would have to check those 2 assurances. All right. So again, we talked about 19 and 20, obligating by 2021, and then liquidating by December 2021. One of the things that we always like for districts to look at when they're doing a revision is always checking your request for funds. And we ask that you always look at the last date because we don't want you making revisions to the budget and you've already spent that money. So we always ask that you look at your last request for funds and then to look at your expenditure details, and that shows, you know, by function and object, how much money that has been spent or requested, and it tells us in what particular function and object that amount has been, you know, requested. So we ask that when you submit a revision, prior to submitting, that you always check your expenditure details to make sure that you're not changing any amounts that's already been spent. And so you might say, well, what does that look like? So say for instance, I'm just looking at function, let's just say function 1120, which is elementary, and then an object 100, which is salary, okay? You have $30,000 budgeted there. And you're saying, okay, I wanna change that to $15,000, okay? All right. And so you're saying, I'm gonna change it to $15,000, but then when I go and look at the request for funds, you've already requested $20,000. So that actually is gonna leave you in the negative. So we would not, from our office, because that's one of the steps that we have in place, we would not be able to approve that because that's gonna have you in the negative. So that's why we always ask that you check your expenditure details to make sure that you're not moving money that has already been spent. Because technically, if you've already spent that money is no longer there. So if you think about the bank, you're not able to go and get $100 at the bank because you've already spent that $100, right? So that's what we ask, that you always look at your expenditure details. And that's one of the biggest issue that we have when we have to send revisions back, is because they're trying to move money that's already been spent. Any questions? I know I can go on and on. I'm very passionate about MCAPs. So are there any questions so far? Any questions in the chat? I'm trying to see.
I don't see any.
Okay.
No, I'm just jealous that we didn't have this when I was at our programs.
Yes.
I mean, how fabulous would that have been? I'm just super jealous of that.
Right.
I'm having flashbacks looking at Ella applications because I'm like, this is not electronic. I'm like, oh.
It's like Aura money.
Yes.
I remember when we had to do the CFPAs, and those worksheets used to be like 100 pages long.
Oh, yeah. Yes, this is federal program directors and SPED folks have it easy now compared to what we did a few years ago.
Right.
This is great. Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Alicia talked about monitoring, and so I did want to come back and talk about monitoring. And last year was was our first year that we implemented the programmatic review, and we will continue this year with the fiscal and programmatic reviews. And the programmatic indicators are double letters. So like AA is talking about Title I, Part A, reservations and allocations. That's where we come and look at, say for instance, Alicia talked about data. We come and look at your low income data to see how many, if you have data verified for your low income count. Okay. Foster care, to make sure that you have those policies and procedures in place in regarding foster care, transportation, So our programmatic indicators are our double letters, and then our fiscal indicators are our single letters, like A is allowability or accounting. So those are our double letters. And what we decided to do last year, which was a good thing, Mr. Ransberg was like, it might be overwhelming to try to, touch every program. And so what we decided is based upon the district and the risk assessment, we came in and we looked at specific indicators and specific programs. So with the charter school, 9 times out of 10, a lot of charter schools transfer their Title II funds into Title I. And they transfer a lot of their Title IV funds into Title I. So we'd probably just look at Title I. But out of the Title I, we might just look at, say for instance, programmatic, we might just look at parent and family engagement, and then look at, might not look at early childhood, but look at school-wide programs. And that might be the only 2 that we look at programmatically. So I think that's the way that we're gonna go this year, that we'll select certain programs and then we'll select certain indicators. And that's one of the things from our office, if you get on the list to be monitored, in that letter, we'll make sure to tell you what program that we're gonna monitor, and then what specific programmatic indicators that we'll be looking at. Okay. Now, I do want to, so say for instance, I want to bring your attention to RR, which is Title IX, which is the McKinney-Vento. And a lot of the charter schools do not have the McKinney-Vento grant. However, there is a component of McKinney-Vento that's required because of Title I. So just because the charter school do not have that grant, there are a few components of it that's required because those are Title I requirements. So we ask that you look at the monitoring instrument and look at those indicators. Upcoming training, we have OFP University. We're beginning to have monthly sessions with OFP University. For this particular school year, it's done, we started in Microsoft Teams. So we're gearing up for our September session. And in our September session, I think we're going to talk about data, and we're going to talk about comparability. And so if you're not on that list or that listserv, please email me so that I can get your name on that listserv so that you can be aware of those OFP University trainings. Those trainings are very helpful. It's geared towards our, first and second year federal program directors. It's not a large group, very, informal, where we, sit down and you can ask questions and we can go into detail and even, show our screens, doing different things. So I think OFP University is very helpful, especially to our new directors. And then as Alicia talked about, we have our new director EGR training, and it is tentatively set for October 12th and 13th. And we will do that virtually. And so once we get confirmation, we will send that registration information out on the listserv as well. So OFP University, it doesn't require registration, but we just send you a link, but you have to make sure that you're on the list, on our OFP University listserv, so we can communicate to you all those sessions. Some of our common monitoring findings is really a lot with the written procedures, and it's very, and I think that most of the charter schools findings were written procedures, for the simple fact that I think the charter schools are unique. And it's like you have an umbrella, and then the charter schools, like one of the charter schools are under that umbrella. And sometimes the policies and procedures for that umbrella does not fit that particular charter school. So we ask that the procedures are more defined to the operation of that particular charter schools in reference to, you know, your day-to-day operations when it comes to procurement, when it comes to time and effort, you know, those different types of things. And a lot of times we don't ask for policies because we understand that policies are more rigid and you have to, you know, go through a lot to get policies approved. I know working in the LEA, it would take us reading that particular policy 3 times at 3 different board meeting, and then it would have to get approved. So it was more tedious to get a policy approved than a procedure. Procedure is something that you can have written, and then, you know, if something comes up, like say for instance this month, you're like, oh, I need to input that in my procedure because that works better. You can just, you know, notate that in your procedure handbook. So a lot of times we ask that you do more procedures than policy. And so we ask that the procedure be more defined to that particular charter school. And then we have time and effort documentation. Again, it's because of the uniqueness of the charter school. But if you have any questions about time and effort documentation, because each charter school is kind of different, just give us a call and we'll, you know, walk you through that process. And then again, procurement, because charter schools is different. So we have to just make sure that even though charter schools are different, you still have to, you know, abide by the guidance, the procurement guidance. Okay, and you have to make sure that you stay within those different thresholds that's been set.
Can I get one of you, Alicia or Judy, to talk a little bit about sole source? I know that's come up a couple of times for us, not necessarily with Title I, but with our CSP, and that would be the same regulations with respect to sole source purchases as it would be with Title I. So if one of you could talk to that, that would be great.
So in our office, we kind of frown upon sole source for the simple fact, let's just say that, and then I have, you know, experienced this myself. You have an assessment program, and that assessment program can only be sold by, let's just say, Judy Nelson, right? Because it's copyrighted by Judy Nelson. And I'm gonna come and tell you, hey, no one else can offer you this assessment program because it's owned and copyrighted by Judy Nelson, right? So I can provide you with a sole source letter because Judy Nelson is the only person that can sell it, okay? But then we look at the basis of that assessment, right? So the basis of the assessment is an online assessment program, let's just say for math, right? That means that, you know, you can go out and look at another online assessment program for math. It doesn't have to be Judy Nelson, but at the basis of it is an online math assessment, right? So technically it's not sole source, okay? And we always use the term Apple, okay? You know, everybody say Apple is sole source, Apple is sole source. Yes, the operating system is Apple, right? It's iOS, right? But you have Walmart that can sell Apple. You have Best Buy that can sell Apple. Apple is not the only company that sell Apple products, right? So we look at it that term. And they're just like with consulting services, right? I'm the only one that can provide, you know, virtual PD, but the basis of it is virtual PD, right? So we just ask that you be, you know, you look at things in that term for procurement. The basis of it, like if it's an online assessment, if it's a virtual PD, if it's an intervention program, is there something specific you're looking for an intervention program? So at the end of the day, you might want an intervention program that does computerized or individualized learning path, right? For your intervention programs. And then, you know, again, Judy Nelson is the only program that can do this because this is Judy Nelson, right? But you can go out and research and find that there's other intervention programs that can give you a, you know, individualized learning path.
Judy, I'd just like to interject and just say that there's a very high bar to meet when you begin to procure something utilizing the sole source avenue for procurement, because the nature of these funds require that you are ensuring that you're getting a reasonable price.
Right.
And you have to ensure that you're giving multiple vendors an opportunity to benefit from these public funds. So please keep in the very back of your mind that more often than not, the folks that are selling you on this sole source, they're vendors, and they're going to benefit from you purchasing this good or this service directly from them. So I just encourage you to really do your research. And if you're really going to purchase something or procure something utilizing the sole source avenue, I would pick up the phone and give someone a call in the charter school office, or give us a call over here in the federal programs office. And I always use this corny cliche, but I say it all the time. If it gives you pause, call. So if it makes you stop, you really need to say, hold on, Mr. Vendor, Madam Vendor, let me just do the research on this procurement. Because at the end of the day, if you procure it and we come to your site and we pull up something and we say, okay, you purchased Nelson math and Campbell math would have been a comparable procurement to Nelson math, guess what happens? There's a question cost on the procurement, or there could be a question cost on the procurement. And that's more work for us, and we don't want that to happen. Ultimately, that's Mississippi sending money back. We don't want that to happen. So we want to be here, and we want to be a good, viable resource for you.
Thank you, Quinn.
Alicia, did you want to add anything?
No, you did well.
So now we're going to talk about MCS, and we want to emphasize MCS because, as Alicia stated, a lot of that data that she's requiring come from MCS, and so that's why it's very important that we have quality data in MCS and that we are reporting this accurately, because MCS is our data reporting platform. We pull data, you know, to do allocations. You know, we pull data from MCS to look at budgets. So it's very important that this information that's in MCS is accurate. So one of the things that we want to make sure that we talk about is personnel that's listed in MCS. You got to make sure that that personnel, if you look at the personnel activity report, you want to make sure that any of your federally funded employees, they have a funding source of 1 or 9, okay? So you want to make sure that those funding sources are reflected in that personnel, that MCS personnel. And then not only is the funding source important, we talked about FTEs. That's where you have that, you know, if it's 50% with title, if it's 25% with SPED, and 25% with district, you have to equate those percentage to the minutes. So that 240 minutes of that person's schedule is tied to Title I, 120 minutes is tied to special ed, and then the other 120 minutes is tied to those district funds. So when we're talking about FTEs, again, it's the percentage that's being paid out of those different funding sources. And we do have individuals that's, you know, paid from Title I, that's paid from SPED, and they also pay from district. So you have to make sure you notate that on the personnel detail. And these minutes are outlined on that individual, and it's by course code. Okay, so we will have training more in depth about that, but this is an MCSAB under the course code, and again, it's the special funding sources, like 240 minutes tied to that Title I, which is 1 or 9, which is the other funding source. These are our student screens, which is homeless, neglected, and delinquent. We also have immigrant. We also have migrant, and then we also have EL. So these are our different student screens. It's very important that your month 1 data is very, very important. And so with your month 1 data, if you have a homeless student in month 1, which is August and September, that person needs to be, you know, tagged as homeless or identified as homeless. And we talk about your student data package. So your student data package is what's uploaded into MCSAB. You don't have, you know, you can't go directly into MCSAB and tag a student. You will have to upload that information in your student data package. So it's very important that prior to you doing any uploads that you actually check these different indicators for your students to make sure that they're counted, especially with month 1, because month 1 is our big data month. As Alicia stated, you know, that's when you're talking about significant increase in enrollment data, you have to pull that from your month 1 data. So that's why it's very important that your month 1 data is, you know, accurate. Your migrant data, you would select that, you would input that migrant data once you get confirmation from Mississippi State, the Migrant Center. They are the one that handles our migrant student population. And so once you get confirmation from Mississippi State, that's when you will actually tag that student as migrant in your data. So if you don't hear from Mississippi State, don't tag any student as migrant, okay? So get confirmation from Mississippi State. EL, again, month 1. Month 1, you would tag, you know, indicate if the student is an EL student. And then after month 1, you will have, you know, these different screens to pop up, which is month served, the language, status, the year, and monitored if they're exiting the program. So you would have to first, for month 1, identify your EL students. If they roll over, you have to make sure that they roll over correctly from year to year. And then after month 1, after it populates and approved, you will have these different screens like your month served, language and status, etc. Your immigrant, again, you would have to tag that student as immigrant first in your month 1. And after your month 1 has been approved, that's where you will go back in and look at the language and identify the language of the immigrant student. Homeless, you will have to first identify your homeless students. So we ask that you make sure that you verify your homeless students prior to your month 1 upload. Once that student has been identified as homeless in month 1, then after the month 1 data been approved, you would have these different screens available for you to input data. And that's the service, the barriers to success, living condition, and if that student is an unaccompanied youth. Neglected and delinquent is just an indicator. There's no other screens. So for your month 1, you would just have to tag that student as neglected or delinquent. And I think that's it. I was trying to pace myself. But I ran through the MCSAB, and I know that MCSAB is very important, but we will go more in depth with the MCSAB. We will put out trainings in mid-September prior to month 1, and then we will also go over the data in our OFP universe.
Right, thank you both so very much. We greatly appreciate it. Are there any additional questions for the Office of Grants Management, Office of Federal Programs? Okay, if they are, please see their email addresses there on the screen. They are very responsive. I know they see several emails from me, and they're always so gracious to email back and even schedule a meeting if needed. So Ms. Campbell, Ms. Nelson, Mr. Ransberry, we definitely appreciate you all joining us today. And if we have any additional questions or need some additional information, we will definitely reach out to you all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, y'all.
And I just want to say, we have several charter schools that have not received final approval for FY21. We want to assist you with that process as quickly as possible. So if you need some one-on-one assistance, please reach out to our office so that we can help expedite that process of approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds great. Thank you so much. Next on the list, we have the Office of Special Education, and I think I see several that are here. I think Ms. Lamont, Mr. Richardson, Mr. Gibbons as well. You all now have the screen. If you need to share or you need some assistance, just let us know.
Okay, I think that I'm gonna try to share.
Okay.
And let me know when you can see it. And then I'm gonna.
We can see your screen now.
Okay, and I'm gonna put it play from start. Let me see. Hang on just a second. Wait, just a second. It's not letting me. For some reason, I'm not able to. Hang on just a second. I'm gonna print out this real quick. It's not showing my. For some reason, when I transfer it over, it's not showing my notes. So hang on one second. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay. Okay. So since y'all already had to, first of all, let me say welcome. Y'all had a full day. There's nothing like being at the end of the day for everybody. So I know you've heard the vision and the mission, and the only thing I'd like to say is that it's our job to ensure that we do everything possible to meet the needs of our children and ensure that they have access to all that they need to be successful and to the highest quality materials and teachers so that everybody goes on to graduate or be a lifelong learner and find what, I always say, whatever that job is that they wanted, it's our job to help make sure that they get that job. So in the Office of Special Education, we talk a lot about what's our real purpose. And so the purpose of the Individuals with Disabilities Act is really just to ensure that all children with disabilities have available to them a free and appropriate public education, and that we provide them the related services that they need to meet each of their unique needs and prepare them for further education, employment, and independent living. So it's also up to us to ensure that the rights of children with disabilities and their parents are protected. And I like to say that in everything I do, I'm always thinking about a child. Every decision I make, I'm thinking about a family. And so we have to assist our districts in meeting the needs of the educational needs of the children and provide for all of the that all the federal guidelines and all of those things are met, and to ensure that that we access and ensure effective efforts to educate those children. So today, the plan, I'm going to share a lot of the different programs that fall within our office. I'm going to talk to you about each of the programs and some of the available resources that we've publicized and some of the things that we're working on that I think may assist you in improving the outcomes for the students with special needs. So the first thing I want to look at is our alternate diploma. And so when we talk about the alternate diploma, that option is really offered by districts for incoming ninth graders with significant cognitive disabilities in 2018-19 and thereafter. So it's available only to students that are identified by their individual education program committee. So that IEP committee makes that determination as meeting the eligibility criteria for being identified as a student with significant cognitive disabilities. As defined, so it's not defined by us, it says defined by the Testing Students with Disabilities Regulations and State Board Policy Chapter 78, Rule 78.1. So you just need to remember it is not the equivalent of a traditional high school diploma. It's not recognized by post-secondary entities that require traditional high school diploma. So for more information, I can send this PowerPoint to whoever, but what we've done is we've embedded hyperlinks into it, so you can just click each link and you'll be able to access the document that we're referencing in the presentation. So for more information on the alternate diploma, please visit, look at Appendix A10 in the 2020 Mississippi Public School Accountability Standards. So in addition, when you think about which high school alternate diploma courses currently require a Mississippi Academic Assessment Program, the MAP-A, it's going to be your alternate biology, your alternate English 2, and your alternate algebra. So then we talk about the certificate of completion. And again, it's not a high school diploma or an alternate diploma. It's an acknowledgement of the student's participation in and completion of his IEP program. For more information about the certificate of completion, you can look at Appendix A11 in the 2020 Mississippi Public Accountability Standards. Just everything you need to know about it is there. There's much information. So when we talk about child find, we know that's our ongoing obligation to identify, to locate, and to evaluate all the children suspected of disabilities who need special education or related services as a result of those disabilities. So when you look at this, requests for initial evaluation and responses to such requests are not limited to number by year. A lot of times we say, we've already had a comprehensive assessment, we can't evaluate you again. You're not limited to the number per year or the time of the year the requests are received. So for example, if a MET team gets a referral in May, and they have a meeting with the parent and they decide to move forward with an evaluation, it would not be compliant to tell the parent that the evaluation is going to be done in August. Once the public agency recognizes or thinks that a child has a disability, they become protected. Those children become protected. And so it's up to us to proceed without delay. If you need additional information, I think I didn't. If you need additional information about the child find process, you just let us know and we'll be happy to send you some additional information. Again, no policies, procedures, or practices, including response to intervention, can delay or deny a child the access to child find. So want to make sure you understand that. So under 34 CFR 300.8, a child must meet the two-pronged test to be considered a child with a disability. So they have to have one of the specified impairment, one of the disabilities, and we're going to look at those in just a second. And they also have to have the impairment has to impact the education and the need for related services. So when we talk about educational impact, that adverse educational impact, when we're thinking about that, it has to involve an involvement and advancement in the general education program. So it has to have an academic impact, education participation with other students without disabilities. It has to impact the social and behavioral impact. And then it can impact participation in extracurricular and other non-academic. So it could be have a vocational impact. And when you're looking at those eligibility categories to make those determinations, these are the 13 recognized eligibility categories that are recognized. So I moved through that kind of quick. So if you have questions, put them in the chat box and we'll be happy there's so much information. When we started making this presentation, I was like, dear Lord, there's so much you could talk about in the Office of Special Education. How do we narrow it down, give you the gist of what we do, and give you access to the connections you need to make within our office to get the supports needed for each of the different programs and requirements. So determination reports. So, and I've been learning a lot about these determination reports lately. The Office of Special Education issues these determination reports annually. The reports can be found, and I've given you the link, and all you have to do is click on the link labeled Special Education Performance Determination Reports and select your district file. So your state lead will be in touch with you to discuss your district's determination and required actions. They've not been released yet. I think we were thinking maybe in the next month the new determination reports would be released. And so if you have any questions or you have any or want any additional information, please don't hesitate to contact us. But if you look, I've tried to, these are your district contacts so that you know who to reach out to that can help you with those district determination reports. Okay. And then when we talk about the dispute resolution process, so the Individuals with Disabilities Act provides options for resolving disputes that allow the parties to continue to work together afterwards, namely ensuring that a child with a disability has available for him or her a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. So basically, we are, you know, if there is a dispute, you have some options for how you can reconcile those disputes. IEP facilitation, mediation. We have the formal state complaint process, due process hearing, resolution meetings, and expedited due process hearings in disciplinary situations. And Armarita Tell in our office has been, I mean, she's amazing. If you ever have any questions or have any disputes that you'd like assistance with or guidance on, she is the person that you can reach out to that can assist you. So for extended school year, those services are designed to support students with a disability as documented under IDEA. And they're to maintain their academic, social, behavioral, and communication and other skills as well that they've learned as part of their IEP. So in order for a student to receive ESY services, there's been a lot of confusion around this. So I made me some precarious notes, so I'd make sure, because with COVID and just recently, there's just been a lot of confusion around this. So in order for a student to receive ESY services, the student must have evidence of substantial regression and recoupment issues during the previous IEP, and or there is evidence of emerging skills, which are often referred to as the breakthrough skills. So the focus of the services provided in ESY are generally not upon learning new skills or catching up to grade level, but rather to provide practice to maintain previously acquired or learned skills. And in some cases, ESY is focused on continuing education for students whose rate of progress is insufficient to enable effective progress during the regular school year. So if a student received ESY the previous year, the student may not be eligible for in future years. It's determined each year. It's made on an annual case-by-case basis. So, you know, just because they got them last year doesn't mean they're going to get them this year. And so you've got to really look at the data to make those decisions. So, and if you have any questions about that, please feel free to contact our office. So Judy did a great overview about MCATs. I mean, she outlined it for y'all beautifully, and I was like, she even highlighted some of the things for SPED. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail other than to say that's the online application system for the Mississippi Department of Education. And It houses the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act funding applications, and we spent a lot of time reviewing those applications for fiscal compliance and funding, and making sure that those things that are allowable are being monitored. So for more information, you can visit mcapsmde.org, k12.org, and you can find additional information. Bobby Richardson is on the call, and he is our fiscal lead for MCAPS, and he's a great resource as well for you to reach out to if you need additional information. So for our monitoring of district compliance, when we talk about, wait, did I get it? Yeah, okay. So monitoring of our district compliance and services to students with disabilities is an ongoing activity that's completed through district self-assessment. We have the district determination data reports that we use for part of our monitoring. We do desk audits, which is probably what we will do this year. And we provide technical assistance, targeted technical assistance for monitoring. I will say this: we are working with MCSI and West Ed to update our monitoring, and we are aware. I want to say this because this is what everybody's asking, including us, when we think about even OSEP monitoring. We had a crazy year. We've had a lot of grace that's been given through state board policies being revised and things like that. So we are very much aware that things are didn't go off as planned for the districts, and so we are very aware of that, and we'll consider all of that if anybody is chosen to be monitored. So I just want to put everybody at ease, because we all feel that same pinch when we think about OSEP even coming to us with all of the waivers and the things that have been done in the past. So okay. So we do have a special ed director mentoring program, and any of the new directors, I think some of the charter schools had new directors. I know some had some last year, SPED directors. But this is a great opportunity that I think that we offer through the Office of Special Education. They provide technical assistance face-to-face in the past, and now they're doing it virtually through Teams. But they call these SPED directors, they walk them through MCAPS, all of these programs we're talking about, all of the deadlines and the qualifications that they're required to meet. Alice Hunter and Cindy Taylor work with these directors that have 3 years or less experience based on their need, and they support them with maintaining compliance and meeting deadlines and understanding what's really required of them. And I think that's great. I've said that would be a great thing even for OSEP to do for new SPED directors for states. So just saying. Okay. We are going to offer Phonics First training again this year. That is, for those of you that don't know, it's a comprehensive, highly intensive, multisensory Orton Gillingham based training that we offered. It's heavily phonics based. It's really a instructional program. So teachers learn how to really facilitate reading and implement it in the order that it's required. It is great. It is free of charge to all teachers across the state. We are offering it online due to COVID right now. And we have a self-paced, or we have a live stream format that you can do, that your teachers can participate in. And it's not just for special education teachers, it's for general ed too. And so for more information, I want you to contact Teresa Laney for the schedule if you want to know about registration. I tried to get the links like we did last year so I could give you the training dates, and they've not all been set. So it's been a little bit different this year, but she said if you would email her, she could give you the potential dates for that. So related services, when we talk about our related services supports, Teresa Laney, again, she's our speech language path, and she works with the OT and PT, and she provides those critical supports for some students with disabilities. So we provide technical assistance for those professionals who work in schools regarding best practices. Teresa Laney, we're working on some virtual speech language path, OT, and PT assistance, so where we can work with the teachers so that they can provide those related services virtually if needed for those special ed students. So contact her, please, if you have any questions about that. So in the Office of Special Education, we have the state personnel grant, and it's really the SPED grant. You might have heard it referred to that. But Reach Mississippi is the person that was awarded the state personnel development grant. It was first awarded back, I think in 2015, and it's operated by the University of Southern Mississippi's Department of Curriculum Instruction and Special Education. And the focus of what they do is universal design for learning and positive behavior supports, PBAS. So they provide free professional development and training for teachers, ongoing technical assistance at no cost to schools and districts across the state. So if you want to participate or you feel like that's an area that you need assistance in, please reach out to Selena Morrell. Awesome. We work with them all the time on other projects as well. But they can come out and provide that training and be a resource for you and your teachers. So we have our state systemic improvement plan, or SIP plan. And so the SIP plan is a plan, it's aligned to the strategic goals established by the State Board of Education. And it's a multi-year plan based on expectations for students with disabilities. And it's really focused on K-3 reading. This year we've expanded to include 4th grade. But we have coaches, have had coaches in the past. Last year was the end of the SIP grants to the school districts. So this year we've changed it a little bit. And so we're currently in the process of hiring SIP coaches, and we're going to model our SIP model and our coaching after exactly what they've done in the Office of Elementary Education and Reading. We felt like there was no reason that we should be working in 2 different manners. And so now we are going to fully fund the SIP coaches instead of a partial part of their salary. So we're going to hire those SIP coaches and fully fund them, and they're going to participate in the same training that the literacy coaches participate in. And so they're going to work together. Now we're going to band elementary ed and our SPED SIP coaches together so that we can support our schools. We feel like this is a way we can scale up and provide that support that's so needed. So look for those supports to be coming soon, and we will be happy to provide additional training. So this next piece is a piece we are super, super excited about. It's our social emotional learning standards. And I can't believe that we never had social and emotional learning standards. And there's no better time for us to be coming out with something like this. So we began the work with Castle when I was in the Office of Elementary Education and Reading prior to moving to the Office of Special Education. And so when we look at this, we have the 5 domains. We've got self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. We worked with Castle, we worked with Tennessee and Illinois to develop these standards. Super excited. You're getting, I think we've only shared this, we shared it with our State Board of Education, and then we recently shared it with NAMLE. But if you look at this is kind of the way it's going to be organized, the SEL domains and corresponding anchor standards. Each domain that you see is divided into 4 grade bands. So we've got K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9, 12. And they contain measurable performance standards. So just what those students should know and be able to do when exiting that particular grade band. So the way that they're organized is each of those the domain has a category of specific content, and under that are anchor standards. So that's going to be what your students should know and be able to do. So under self-awareness, that's going to be the domain. And then the anchor standards, that what they should know and be able to do. And then you've got, as this is laid out, so we've got the grade band, And then you've got the anchor standard, what that student should know and be able to do. And then we have a performance standard. So we've given you a measurable skill that children should be able to do or master by the end of the school year. And then we've actually given you the practical strategies that teachers can use to achieve that performance standard. So we've given you some concrete examples of that. And I will say that we worked with Castle and we worked with Cedar and Reach Mississippi to develop these. And so in the back of the document, there's going to be resources for each of the domains. We've given you online access to the different things that you will need that will help you implement the particular standards as you are teaching them. So this has been a collaborative effort. Like I said, I started in the Office of Elementary Ed and Reading with this, and then the Office of Special Education kind of took the lead through our work that we did with the SPDIG grant and positive behavior supports. And so we've worked with Cedar and Castle and Reach Mississippi, the Office of Teaching and Leading. We've even used these standards when we talk about advancing our initiatives for principal leadership. We talk about the work we're doing with Cedar for that and CCSSO. And these standards will now be used when we talk about special ed teacher licensing. And so we're super excited. They're really going to be embedded in the work and in all the work that we do. So we will make those drafts available probably within the next week. They'll be posted on the communications website probably. They'll probably go a mass email will go out about them. And they're going to be in draft form because we wanted the teachers to look at them and use them and provide the feedback. We wanted the administrators to look at them, use them, and provide feedback. So if before we actually took them to the board, finalized them, we could get feedback from the field if there was any changes that needed to be made to the language or if they felt like anything was difficult or needed. So I do want to tell you a little bit about our professional development opportunities that we have available. So the Mississippi Department of Education's Office of Professional Development currently offers free professional development for educators across the state. These PD opportunities are provided directly to districts and schools who need additional support in the areas of ELA, math, special education, and science. And several cross-curricular sessions are also available. Face-to-face sessions are going to be available. If the schools, we got a little bit of clarification around this the other day. If the schools are schools that are open to us coming in and meeting with small groups, then that is going to be an option. And then also virtual sessions will be offered as well. CEUs will be offered, semis will be offered. And in addition, we have several online opportunities for professional development, like with the Brain Spring, the Phonics First. Our PDCs also have some online opportunities for you. If you need additional information, you can contact Christy Livingston at mdek12.org, and she can provide you with anything that you need to know about for those supports. So some additional resources that I felt like might be of assistance to you. And again, when I send this presentation, they're live hyperlinks, so you'll just be able to click on them and it'll take you right to the document. But I know that y'all have probably seen the webpage that provided the guidance and considerations of best practices for schools and districts that were operating for 2021. So I've given you that link where a lot of information on COVID and health professionals, teachers, parents, like all kinds of information is there. Dates to remember. I don't know if y'all seen the administrator calendar, but it was recently updated. So I've given you that link, and that just has, which I think is amazing because it kind of outlines what are in your calendar, like what's expected, what's due in the Office of Special Education, because it can absolutely get overwhelming. So I think that's a really good document for you. And then the professional development calendar outlines all the free professional development that we offer through MDE. You can actually go in and scale down and find out, like if I'm looking for training for science and I'm an elementary teacher, like put those fields in there and it'll drill down and you can find those trainings that are available. And again, they're free. And so really, I'd say take advantage of that. And then if you have questions about anything ever, I feel like I've been there a year and it has been a whirlwind. And I've learned so much, but I realize how much more I have to learn. So I'll say I don't always have the answer, but I have an amazing staff and amazing people within the entire Mississippi Department of Education that stand willing to support us in our efforts to provide what is best for kids. So at any time, if we can be of assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask us if it's one of these programs. I know policies are always changing. We're wondering what's going to happen over the next 6 months, and none of us know. But with the uncertainty, please understand. Contact us with questions, concerns, anything we can assist you with. I've tried to give you a little bit more extensive list of contacts this year because I felt like these were the things that really were the programs that you were responsible for implementing within our office, and it would be helpful to have the email address so you could reach out to these individuals. So if any time, you need to reach out, you don't know who to reach out to me, and I can put you in contact with the appropriate people. So, and that concludes this presentation. I know, I think I'm almost the tail end. So.
No, we've got a ways to go, Robin.
Oh, good, okay.
We do. Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
Robin, I have 2 questions for you right quick.
Okay, Kevin, I hope I can answer them. And I have backup. I brought backup in case I couldn't.
Good. The first question is, we're working to build out the SPED page of our website, and we're building up the resource section. Are there certain resources that you struggle to get directly to families that you feel like these are the 1 to 5 top resources that if families could just get these, we would be thrilled?
So I will say one I didn't talk to you about would be the ESA flyer that talks about the new legislation. That is probably the hottest piece of legislation and what I receive the most calls about. And trying to get that information to families is very difficult. We don't have listservs, we don't have emails. We have email addresses, but like trying to send out a mass email is not easy, and it changes all the time. So that would be one. And I would think the AFA guide, well, for families. Bobby, what are some of the other ones for families that we've got?
The parent guides to student success. They were not built strictly on special education, but that is something that is huge that needs to be out there. Our office
Are you familiar with those, Kevin?
I don't know if I am.
Okay, so those are K through 8, pre-K through 8, I think, student guides for family success, and I actually got to develop those when I was in the Office of Elementary Education and Reading, and they are on the ELA and math standards for pre-K through 8, and they are written in very easy to understand terms for parents, and they say, here's what the standard is, here's what that really means, and then here's some activities you can do at home. So trying to get those to parents, because those kids that struggle, it explains to them in a way and gives those parents activities. Yeah. So that, Bobby, thanks for that one. What's another one?
Parent engagement and dispute resolution. Because a lot of times our parent engagement office can calm a parent down and provide some facilitation with issues that they're having with a school or a district, and it makes things go smoother. And so I would highlight the dispute resolution. Parent engagement and support is what we call it.
Yeah, because we can talk to them and help them understand their options,
right?
And what they can do prior to it even sometimes escalating to
Yeah.
Another resource that we're currently working on now that was a goal and idea of Robin's and Dr. Wright's are the family guides to student success that are going to be around the 13 eligibility categories. That's going to be huge for the agency, and I think for the state in a whole. They will be similar to the current reading and math family guides that we have out, but these will be great resources for general ed teachers, new special ed teachers, and for families and administrators. But it will be a family guide to student success that will spotlight and focus on each of the 13 eligibility categories under IDEA.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, it will be laid out that way. Dr. Wright and I talked about it, and we've started working, and we are super excited about that. And we're also working on the specially designed instruction guide. And I don't know, Bobby, when do we think that will be? I got a draft of it to read today, to review. I saw that it went out today, so I'm excited about that.
Hopefully that should be coming out in the next month, and we should hopefully have that. That will be this, the specially designed instruction guidance document.
I think anytime parents and families understand what's being required of their child, and we can put it in terms that, I mean, I know even as a grandmother trying to help my 10-year-old with her school, sometimes I'm trying to Google what some of that stuff means that she's bringing home. So I think anytime we can put stuff in terms for families that they understand, because they've not done that in a long time, I think that's going to be so beneficial for our parents. And then we're updating the Access for All guide as well. So
yeah, I think that will be good, because we even had one new family, just as an example, that is new to our district, and it's taking the district of their previous district a little bit of time to get us the folders that we need. And so we're working directly with the family to say, what's the eligibility criteria, or, talk to us about the individual education plan, how we can support all this stuff. And she kept saying the eligibility criteria was dyslexia. And we said, well, okay, we understand that the student has dyslexia, but that's not an eligibility, and just helping families try to interpret that until we got the records and were able to, dig in ourselves and to see it. So
the child have dyslexia, but and it would be an SLD in reading, and
yeah, that's exactly what it was. What it was. Great. And then one other, this might be a foolish question, but does your office coordinate? My understanding is the MDE offers safe restraint training.
Yeah, we had seclusion and restraint policy in here and took it out. I can send you some information about that. It's actually in the Office of Safe and Orderly Schools, and we talked about that. We talked about that prior to this, and when we were looking at what to share. And we just recently provided them guidance on that document that they're updating. So. And I don't know does anybody know who the division director is in Safe and Orderly now?
It's Brian McGarity, I think is his name. Okay. Kevin, if you'll email me, I'll be glad to send it to you. I just don't have it right here on the tip of my fingers, but I can email you his, if you'll email me, Kevin, I can send you his email and contact information.
And Kevin, I'll tell you, I know Margaret, and then there's another person in our agency, it might be Ginger, but they have specialist training in that. So they could support you if you needed assistance with it. Margaret Elmer.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Perfect. Thank you all so much for providing us with updates. And it sounds like y'all have some really great things coming in the future from the Office of Special Education. So we definitely look forward to that. Thank you all, Robin, you and your backup for joining us today and providing our leaders with some of that information as needed. We greatly appreciate it. And if we have any questions, we will definitely reach out to you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And y'all have a great day.
You too.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye.
All right, school leaders. Next up, we have the Office of Financial Services. And Jordan is going to put up their information. I'm not quite sure. I think I see a couple on here. I'm not sure who's going to be presenting. Ms. Johnson, is it you? Letitia, are you going to be presenting, or is Ms. Bowie going to be presenting?
Actually, can you all hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can.
Actually, let me cut my video on. Letitia is presenting, but she's having technical difficulties at the time. So she should be with us shortly.
Okay.
I see her smiling.
You can see her. I don't see her.
I thought I saw her.
I'm Sheila, but she's coming.
Okay, yeah, I see it too. It says connecting to audio. Letitia, can you, there should be a little, oh, there you are. Yeah. Feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How is everyone doing today?
We're all good. Great, thank you.
All right, so I'm having like some echo issues because everything I say, I hear after. Okay, can y'all hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I guess I'll deal with the echo, but good afternoon, everyone. I'm Letitia Johnson, the Bureau Director for the Office of School Financial Services. We have today the guidance manual for charter schools, so I'll go through with it to hopefully provide you with some helpful information. I know you are overloaded today. So once the meeting is over, if you need this guidance manual, you can get it from Miss Lisa. She has it and she can share it with you. So today we'll talk about revenues, the different sources of revenues that MDE provides to the charter schools. We'll talk about local revenue, state revenues, and your state revenues consist of your MAEP funds. We'll talk about the calculation of it, the payment of MAEP, your monthly transfer notifications. We'll talk about federal revenues, how you receive those through a request of funds. We will talk about the different systems of Mississippi Department of Education, their SharePoint, the Mississippi Comprehensive Automated Performance System, which is MCAP, and our Financial Exchange Transmission System, which is FES. Also, I have the school payments calendar included in the manual, sample transfer notifications, instructions for SharePoint, sample requests for funds, instructions for FES submission, and reporting dates. So we have a lot of information packed into this guidance manual. If you have any questions, you can call me at the number, or you can email me at the email address on the front of this manual. Okay, revenues, your local revenues. The local revenues received by the charter schools, these are considered your ad valorem collections. Now, the ad valorem collections, you receive these collections from the local LEA, from the local school district, by the way of us transferring funds to you through your MAEP payments, or they will send you a check. It just depends on the residency of the students attending the charter school. Now, by law, this money has to be to the charter schools no later than January the 15th. When you receive the funds, they should be coded as 1120, 800, 1120. And I always look for this when I'm checking your FEDS files. Those are the reports that you submit by October the 15th. I always look for your ad valorem to be coded to 1120, 800, 1120. Your state revenue. This is your MAEP funds, your big pot of money, the ones you have the most questions about. So MAEP is calculated using a formula that multiplies the LEA's average daily attendance, which we call ADA. You may hear us a lot of times we say ADA, well, that's average daily attendance. For the charter schools, we use the total enrollment and the charter's contract for each year. So when I'm getting ready to do the calculation for MAEP, I'll email Lisa and say I need an enrollment of I need an estimate of the charter school enrollment. So she'll send that to me in June, and in December, she will send me final numbers of what your enrollment will be for the next year. So for this year in December, she will send me the enrollment for FY22. Adjustments will be made to the school's allocation in the following year. So let's say for FY21, I received an enrollment for Ambition Prep of 200 students. But at the end of FY21, we find out that Ambition Prep actually had 150 students. We will make an adjustment to the FY22 funding. So that's what it means when say adjustments were made to the school's allocation in the following year of operation. Payments of MAEP, according to Mississippi Code Section 37-151-103, MAEP will be made 2 working days before the last working day of each month. As we move further in, we'll have a calendar, and I thought this would be very beneficial for you so you'll know exactly when the charter will receive MAEP funds. The MAEP fund should be coded to 1120-800-3150. Your monthly transfer notifications. The Office of School Financial Services will upload a monthly transfer notification to each charter school folder via SharePoint. And this notification each month tells how much you receive in MAEP funds, how much you received in per capita. If you were receiving national board, it will tell how much you received for those payments. If you receive teacher pay raise, so it tells every source of funding what you receive each month. The federal revenues request of federal funds. All charter schools are required to request your federal funds. That's Title I, Title II. You have different federal funds. So you're required to request those funds through MCAP, which is the Mississippi Comprehensive Automated Performance-Based System. Please contact Maria Jackson at the number and email if you have questions, or if you are trying to access MCAP and you can't gain access to it, please call her and she will assist. All other federal funds requested as Title I Program Improvement Fund positive behavior should be requested using the paper method. This form is available on the Office of School Financial Services website and is also included within this manual. Please contact Shanika Grant at the number and email address for questions on federal funds requested using the paper method. Now, if you use MCAP, you contact Marie Jackson. Paper requests are submitted each month, generally around the 12th. A more specific schedule is sent out via the listserv from the Office of School Financial Services, and the requests are submitted to the email address below. Mississippi Department of Education, these are the systems that we have. The first one is SharePoint. And all charter schools, I think, are familiar with SharePoint because it's like our communication between each of them. It's an online system that is used by several different program offices within the MDE, and each program office should provide instructions on how to utilize the specific functions within SharePoint. For the Office of School Financial Service, all documents and forms should be submitted through the charter school folder via SharePoint. The MCAPS is an online application system that reduces the burden placed on districts when applying for grants funding by increasing the transparency of grant activities and providing consistent processes of grant application. It links funding to student outcome by focusing more on planning and data-driven decision. MCAPS provide immediate feedback to school districts on that application. So if you ever want to know what's the status, is it approved? Is it substantially approved? You can look at MCAPS and it will tell you. The Financial Exchange Transmission System, this is FES. This is the next major deadline for the Office of School Financial Services as well as the charter schools. Well, I can't say your major, but on or before October the 15th of each year, The local school board of each school district should prepare and file with the State Department of Education year-end financial statements and other budgetary information that the State Board of Education may require. No additional changes may be made to your financial information once it is submitted. Now, you can submit it on or before October the 15th. We strongly encourage you to present it before October the 15th. In the event that there are corrections that need to be made, you will have time. We will verify, we will review your information. If we see something that just quite doesn't look right, we will send an email and ask you if you can explain this to us or would you like to correct? And we can send it back and you can still meet the October the 15th deadline. Each charter school is required to submit all financial records in the uniform manner prescribed by the accounting manual for Mississippi public school districts. A copy of the manual is available on the Office of School Financial Service website on the Services Accounting Manual for School District. That must be submitted through the Mississippi Student Information System. Now, it is very important that you ensure before October the 15th that you have access to this. So if you do not have access, please contact Sarita Donaldson and the Office of Technology and Strategic Services at the number or email address below. Okay, here we have a school payment calendar for your MAEP funds. So we're in the month of September. The request for funds deadline is September the 14th of 2020, and the transfer date for funds is September the 28th of 2020. So we have a schedule for all of the months in this school year, all of the requests for fund deadlines, and the transfer date. So your request for funds can be done before the deadline, but this is the deadline in column 2. Here is an example of a transfer notification. Now, this is a notification that we upload into the Charter School SharePoint folder each month by the 20th of the month. This says, listed below is a breakdown of your fiscal year 21 electronic funds for the month of July, which are administered through the Office of School Financial Services. So just a key note, for your funds that you receive from federal program, they're not on here. This transfer notification is only for the funds that are administered through the Office of School Financial Services. These funds were or will be transferred to your district. So if we look in column A, it says the type of the funds, MAEP, Mississippi Adequate Education Program. The amount of transfer for this month is $49,162, and it was transferred on July the 29th, 2020. Your year-to-date amount received is the same as column B, but it will change as you move to August, September, October. But as of this transfer notification, this was the first payment for the year. So your year-to-date amount received is the sign. D and B are the same. Column E is very important because this will tell you how to code the revenue. For your MAEP in column E, your fund number is 1120 and your revenue function is 3150. So once you submit your FAST files, the one that I previously mentioned is due October the 15th, I will take this transfer notification form, the last one, and compare to the information you submitted in FAST to ensure that for fund number 1120, revenue function 3150, the total reported per FAST is the same as the amount reported on your last transfer notification for the year. Here we have instructions for uploading a document into SharePoint. These are screenshots that I think will be very helpful. So you can access the SharePoint system from the Office of School Financial Services website. So you will go to Resources and click SharePoint. You sign in with the credentials provided by the MDE, Office of Technology and Strategic Services, which we call OTSS. They will provide you with a username and password. Okay, select the School Services tab. It's across the top of the screen. And on the side, you would select District. At number 5, you would select your district name and number. And number 6, select the folder where you will upload the documents. So in this illustration, you're uploading documents. For FY20 documents, you would click FY20, your FY20 folder, then select annual forms. Now this is the folder in which you will upload your FY20, or which you did upload your FY20 combined and combining budget for the charter school. It goes in the annual forms folder. Once inside the folder, select documents and upload documents. The upload document dialog box will open. Browse for your file, then click OK to continue. After the file is uploaded, it will appear in the folder with a date, time marker, and your name. Be sure you have properly named the file before uploading it to SharePoint. At any time, you can navigate back to a previous screen by selecting the back arrow. Once you have completed the upload, sign out of SharePoint. If you experience problems with SharePoint, you may call the number or you may email the email address on the screen. Unfortunately, the Office of School Financial Services cannot help you with any problems you have with SharePoint. So you will have to call the number, and that puts you in contact with OTSS, or if you email the email address on screen, it also puts you in contact with OTSS. Here we have a sample of a request for funds. This is what I spoke about earlier when I say when you're requesting federal funds on paper. So this is the form that you will use to request your federal funds. And if you scroll down, this is the form where if you had questions, you would contact Shanika Jackson. And it has up top of the form, it tells you what email address to send it to. Okay, here we have our instructions for MCSAB submission. Again, is due October the 15th, 2020, as required by Mississippi Code 376121. These are detailed instructions that will guide you through the process of submitting your FES files. As I said, as a reminder, first you have to make sure that you have access to MCES. So you might want to play around with that before October 15th. And once you log into your step 1 is to log into MCES using your username and password. At the database tab, you will need to type MCES, click on the connect. This will send you to the MCES main screen. If you have problems, you will call OTSS help desk at the number stated. Step 2, you will enter your bond data. Now you must follow step 2 because you cannot navigate to step 3, 4, 5 until you do step 2. So you enter your bond data, you select modules from the menu line, select FES on this drop-down box, select your bond indebtedness on the drop-down box. Enter your bond on tab 1. You will then need to select tab 2. And remember on tab 2 to start with box number 22. And once you have entered your data, save this data either by selecting File or Save or by clicking on the picture of a diskette at the upper left-hand corner of the screen. Click on the X and this will return you to the main screen. Step 3 is access the send data to MCSAB screen. Here, what you're doing is you're taking your financial information from your financial system and you're sending it to MCSAB. So you select interface from the menu line, select send data to MCSAB. The send data to MCSAB screen will appear. Click on the browse button to locate your XML file. And this is the format in which your file should be saved. If it's not saved in this format, MCSAB will not accept. Once you have located your XML file on your desktop, click open. The file name will show up in the box beside the browse icon button. Click on upload. This will send your data to MCSAB. Click on the X in the upper right hand corner of the screen to close. This will return you to the MCSAB main menu. Step 4 is access, view, download reports. So you go to select interface on the menu line. Select view, download, fetch results. The view, download results screen will appear. Now, once you review your report, it will tell you whether the report was a success or a failure. Sometimes on your report, you can have errors on your report that needs to be correct, but MCSAB will let you go ahead and it will give you a success. As the business manager, you have to know which errors need to be corrected on the file and which ones are simply a warning and you don't have to do anything with them. So you will have to know what to correct and what not to correct. So if everything is good and you say, hey, I reviewed the file and all of my messages that says warnings are exactly what it says is a warning, then you will return to the MCSAB main screen. Step 5, you will review your reports. Select reports from the MCSAB main menu. Select financial data. Select best. Select pre-approved. And review your reports. We ask that you review your fund balance report, your revenue report. Just review the reports to ensure that the information, that it is your information, that you just didn't, upload a file from FY18, that you did upload the correct file. Step 6 is releasing the data to MDE. Now that you've done all of the steps, we still don't have the information, because you're in the review process. So if you agree that all of the information is correct and you looked at the reports and you're ready to submit to MDE, select modules on the screen, select FETS, select appropriate import FETS data. The screen that appears will show your district number and name. Holding date will be the date your file was processed by MCSAB. Ballot should have a Y, wrong report should have a Y, bond data should have a Y. So you should have 3 Ys. If you don't have a Y, it's not going to let you release it to MDE. So once you have your 3 Ys, you are now ready to enter the district approved date. You don't have to enter it. All you have to do is click in the field and it will automatically populate you a date. Changes should not be made to your FETS data once you release it to MDE, because this is your final file. If after you have released your data to MDE, you realize that you have made an error that needs to be correct, please call our office so we can flag it and send it back to you, but still this has to be done by October the 15th. So if you find out on October the 16th, you have errors, we can't send it back to you. If you find out on October the 15th, it's not good because it takes a day to come back to us and you'll be late. Any submissions or resubmissions made after October the 15th will be considered as not have made the deadline. Save this file after you have entered the district approved date by either clicking on the icon of the diskette which appears in the upper left corner or by selecting File and Save. Click on the X in the upper right corner of the screen. This will return you to the MCSAB main menu. select file or exit. This will exit you from the MCSAB file. If you have any questions concerning submission of FES data, please feel free to contact our office at the number listed. This is a list of reporting dates for FY 2021. Your first one is a monthly attendance summary report. This report is due the 10th of each calendar month, except January, where the due date changed to the 13th. And that's because of the holidays. The budget reports, the combined and combining sign are due August the 15th, 2020 for the original budget, FY 21, and the October the 15th, 2020, your amended budget for FY 2020 is due. And these are uploaded into the district SharePoint folder. Your personnel accreditation data report. All personnel data should be entered into MCS no later than October the 1st, 2020. All updates and corrections to personnel data should be entered no later than 4 p.m. Friday, December the 4th, 2020. And this is a critical deadline. You need to have all of your personnel in, because we will use this information, well, not for the charter schools, but for the school district, we use it for MAEP funding. FES data, revenue verification form, fund balance, and the cash flow report. Those forms are due October the 15th, 2020. Student discipline and incident reports. Incident shown on the persistently dangerous school category report is due within 72 hours. All other discipline and incident reports are due the 10th of each calendar month, October through June. So in the event that you fail to submit any of these reports that I just listed, the district is subject to the withholding of MAEP funds by the State Board of Education until the reports are submitted. Well, I'll read the other one that says, in addition to the above listed reports, the State Superintendent of Education may designate other reports that are subject to the withholding of MAEP funds if the reports are not submitted within the requested time frame. Notice of these reports being subject to the withholding of MAEP funds must be given at the time of the request of the report. So we ask that you please submit your reports timely, because we are dependent on all of your reports. It may be for another project or for another reason that we need them. So the deadlines established are important. Okay, so that is the end of my presentation. I did have one question in the chat. And I'm not sure if Alicia is on here, because I know she could explain it better than I can. The question says, can you elaborate on substantially approval? And then that's with those federal grants. So I know you have substantially and not substantial. That's with federal and with the Office of Special Education.
So I can speak from the Office of Federal Programs.
Okay.
Okay, so what we asked is that district move the application to draft started, and then have it moved to the plan portion of it, because our plan is good for 3 years. And so once they move it from draft started, that gives the district substantial approval for the upcoming year. So that means that districts are allowed to do purchase orders, or, to obligate funds, meaning that they can also do payroll. That's substantial approval. However, you are not able to request reimbursements until you get final approval for those federal funds. And that's from the Office of Federal Programs.
Okay.
Okay, are there any additional questions? Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Johnson,
You're welcome.
for your presentation and also putting together that manual for us. This manual will be posted on the MCSAB website for our leaders. I know there's some valuable information in there within the dates.
I see another question.
Thank you, Dr. Carmacharia. Sorry, I chimed in a little late here. Ms. Johnson, you talked about the SharePoint site, and we also have a SharePoint site for the digital learning plan. Are those two different SharePoint sites, or has everything been combined into one SharePoint?
For the business managers, I know that there is an EDLA folder located within the SharePoint folder. So I don't know, like for the technology, will they have a different EDLA folder than the business managers? So I can only speak to the business manager side of it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any additional questions? Perfect. Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson, and your team for joining us today to provide us with those updates. We really do appreciate it. And we'll also be reaching out to you if we have any additional questions.
Okay,
Thanks
sounds
so much.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alrighty.
Welcome.
Moving on now, we will have OTSS with their presentation. And I think I saw that name. Yes.
Hi, I'm Sarita Donaldson, and I am speaking on OTSS. I decided to wake you all up today, put some color on the background.
Yeah.
So basically, what I'm going to do is show you some outlines of our office. So I will go to, let me see, can I get where the screen? Share my screen. Okay. So there are several ways to get to the Technology and Strategic Services office. You can come in under the educator link, and there are some applications that are tied to our office, or you can come in under the administrator and you will directly see Technology and Strategic Services at the bottom, and the offices are listed in alphabetical order. We tried to make our website as meaningful depending on who it is trying to access it. We also have a directory up toward the top. You can see directory information right here. Let me slide down a little bit. The directory, and this will give you all the offices that are in MDE. So if you know what particular office, you can find out who's the staff and the phone number, and you can go to their website. So getting back to Technology and Strategic Services, what we do in our office, we offer technical support, and we are also responsible for the MCSAB application, the TIMS, which is our textbook application. We're responsible for your E-rate funding, and we are responsible for most data requests that come in. If you have a request for data outside of what's in your local packages, you can send a request to the Office of Reporting, and they will in turn contact the appropriate business office to give you that information that you need. Since a majority of you will be submitting data to MDE, we'll go back and I'll show you how you can get to the application. So on the educators, also on the administrators, you can come down to the app and you can get to either the MCAPS or MCIS. You know, they got textbooks management, but we're going to talk about MCIS today. So instead of going directly to the applications over here, also the licensure, I don't want to miss that. So we're going to go to the MCIS web page, the main web page. On this webpage, what we try to do is give you all the information that you need that will help you in submitting your data correctly and in a timely manner. We have a reporting timeline that's listed. We have the accreditation standards. We have FERPA, which if you have not had any FERPA training, then you need to, especially before you have access to MCSAB. We designate, or your director designates a main MCSAB point of contact, and that person has the rights to give additional people within your organization access to MCSAB. But we recommend that everybody who is touching student level data takes the FERPA training. So in the reporting timeline, we have the information broken down so that it's a little bit easier to see. Lisa, I want to tell you that I copied one of your formats that you had on the calendar. Okay. So on the annual reporting calendar, what we've done is we've broken down by months. It makes it a little bit easier for you to find what you need. So since we're in September, let's go to September. And on this September format, it is showing you, what files are due, when they're due, and also some information as to make it easier for you to find out what you're needing to do. So like if you have first grade students, well, most of them, then you can, instead of going in and requesting an MCSAB ID one by one, you can send a file and it would give you a list of your students. You can send the file up and then it'll give you your bunch of MCSAB IDs coming back. So that's for any child that's under the age of 7. But now on the transfers and release, it's telling you that you have to have ownership of all your students before you start submitting your data. And then your personnel, that's gives you a reminder that all personnel is supposed to be entered in no later than September 30th. That's by state statute. And this information drives your accreditation edits, which some of the edits apply to you when it comes to like your student teacher ratio. But due to COVID, there have been some relaxing of business rules, and that went out on MCSAB Blast, also through MDE for communications. Then in October, which is your next major, that's when you actually start submitting your files, because you can start submitting at 12 noon on the last day of the month. And you have up until the 10th normally for each, for your deadline. There are some exceptions, and I'll go back and I'll show you that. But it's telling you what file needs to come in first, how you can, and what it does. When you submit your monthly student data file, I tell you that month 1 is very important, that you make sure that you are reporting all of your students. So there's a roster, there are several different reports that you can run to make sure that your information is correct. Month 1 data is what we call the official enrollment for the state. So you want to make sure that you do not leave any of your students out. I always tell this story of that if you're looking at the average expenditure per pupil is $5,000. We had one school district one year that left out an entire grade and in month 1. So they lost, I think it was $250,000 because they did not check their reports and make sure that their students were there. And we cannot go back in time and adjust once you have approved your ADA. That's the reason why you have a reports. There are some reports that are required that you have to run, but this monthly pre-approved, the monthly attendance, those are the ones that really affects your money, but sometimes you look at the number, you say, okay, it looks good, but you really do need to make sure that you have all your students, because if you don't see, if you have a child sitting in your classroom and you don't notice until December that that child was never enrolled or submitted for enrollment, you've lost that count for that child up until you discovered it. So now it looks like the child just started school in December. So we can't go back in time once the month has passed. That's the reason why there's a process where you have to review your data, then go in and approve your school, and then go in and approve your district. So we try to put enough steps in there that when you're clicking that approval, that means that you have verified and checked your data and the data is accurate. Okay. Where we have it broken down in months and we have a little bit more detailed data, this district timeline is just an overview. It's not as detailed. It just gives you a synopsis of some of the things that you need to know for each month. So either one, it still has it. It's just that the individual months has a little bit more information in it. Now on this MCSAB processing, this is something new that we put out this year, and we thought it would help. Is we're letting you know when we start processing files for the school year. We try to have a period in which you can submit a test file. So it will go through all the edits and it will let you know if you have anything wrong, if you have missing data, you know, depending on which vendor you're using, you may or may not have these checks built into your system. But if not, this is another means in which you can check your data up until 12 noon on the day that we actually start processing. Once we start processing, then your file will go through, you know, as you submit it. This will go up to the point, it will check everything, but you will not have the opportunity to approve. Any questions so far?
I don't see any in the box.
Okay. Over on the right-hand side of the MCSAB page, under resources, where it says subscribe to MCSAB Blast, I want to make sure everybody who is accessing data or touches the data subscribes to this MCSAB Blast. What we do is we send out reminders and anything that's dealing with the data collection piece. Sometimes there are things that are, if there's a change, then we send it out on MCSAB Blast. So majority of the times we give you, like, these are the districts that have approved, you know, deadlines coming up. So it's like a reminder each month we do that. Also, like when the state board did some waivers on the 180-day requirement, we send that out on MCSAB Blast. So even if you're not on another listserv, we try to make sure that the people who touch the data are aware of changes that may impact the data. Also, we have the accreditation standards link here, that so that you can see the ones that impact your area. A lot of times we get questions, and which is why we made sure that we had a link to their to their standards on their web page here. Also, the personnel student manuals. What we've done is we have broken up the manual. There is a personnel, you have two different manuals. You have a training manual, which gives you a little bit more detail on entering data, and then you have the reference manual. So we've broken up the individual chapters to make it easier for you to find the information that you need. If there's anything that's not clear, please let us know. We try to get the districts to vet and make sure that nothing is murky. if there's something that is missing, we would like to know that also, because we're thinking that everything's fine. So if we don't hear back from you, then we assume that the documentation is correct. So for you all, you would have on your personnel, mostly what you are concerned with right now is your general schedule entry. Because as I say, the deadline is September 30th. We are required to check and make sure who has not entered in their personnel by this time. So a list does go out to the appropriate program areas if we do not, have your data in by that time. Also on the for the student section, and this will aid you in your student submission, your student data submission. We've done the same thing. We've gone down and we've broken out the individual chapters in the training manual, and we have also put in like your discipline reporting. MDE does not want to collect everything that occurs in the classroom. What we want to collect is those incidents that result in a child missing class or being suspended for school. Anything that impacts their learning. That's what we try to collect here. This is the federal definition for race and ethnicity, and the reason being is, and I will double check and make sure, what they did on this one, the reason why we had to put it out was because they changed the definition for some origins of people. And one thing, because we do have a lot of people, immigrants that come in, or the parents are here, is the designation of a student when you start talking about the racial group is if they're from North Africa, then they are defined as white. And also Native American and other Pacific Islanders, if they're from one of the islands, their designation is PI. If you have a student that identifies as more than one race, then you report their race as TM for 2 or more. Also on the ethnicity, I want to point out it's Y if they are of Hispanic or Latino or Spanish origin. If not, then you put them as no. Also on your entry codes, you need to make sure if a child has because of the different start dates of school districts, a student should only have one E1, which is the first enrollment in school. So if they come from another district and they attended class, then they will not be an E1. So, and an E1 could be anytime this school year. But you need to make sure when you're using your codes that you're using the appropriate one. Because we have had issues where one school starts a week after another school, and because their school's just starting, they're thinking it's an E1, but the child actually transferred from another school because the parent moved. So that's one of the things you have to check at the beginning of the school year. We've had some feedback from some of the districts that use different packages. And one of the things that they have been able to come up with is to tell us what the corresponding report is inside your local package. So to do a double check, like this one is for central access, and then we have feedback on Power School, which they gave us for those that are using PowerSchool. And this tells you how to use the report. We still have some districts that are using Chalkable, but I think if you're new and you're coming in, you're probably either using PowerSchool or you're using Central Access. So this is just another feature we put out there to help you make sure that what you have locally and what MDE receive is correct. I always tell them, because you're doing a file transfer and because another system is processing your data, you want to make sure that what you sent and what we say we got agrees. So that's just another check, and we put something out here to kind of aid you in finding how you run a report in your system and how you run one in MCSAB and be able to compare.
That's a great document.
Okay, thank you. So if there's any other documents that may be missing, you know, I'd appreciate it if you let us know. You know, there are some school districts that may have students that populate on summer activity. What we do at the beginning of the school year is any student that was enrolled in month 9 of the previous school year and was supposed to return this school year, and they're not enrolled in any district, then we populate a table where we call it summer activity, which is what happened to the student over the summer. This should be your no-show list. So you should have a no-show list that you've already submitted to the school attendance officer saying that these students didn't show up for this school year. What we do is we try to go and find those students. So we try to narrow it down so that by the time everyone has completed month 1, that's the reason why we wait for the whole state to finish, then we go through a process of trying to identify every student. So hopefully you don't have any students on your screen, but if you do, then those are the ones that you should already know where they are, and then we enter that in and we track that. Because those students used to get lost, because if they don't enroll, you know, and they were there last year, you were assuming that they went somewhere else. This way, we're trying to identify and make sure that they went somewhere else. I'm trying to think of what else that would be coming up. This is also another explanation of your monthly student reports, and it kind of tells you what appears on the report and what the purpose is behind it. So I won't go into detail. I'm just trying to show you the various information that we have listed on our website to try to aid you in submitting your data to MDE. Are there any questions?
I haven't seen any in the chat box.
Okay. Okay, well, let's see. I know that my previous, they kind of ran over a little bit, so I'm trying to make sure that I stay on point so that, but I also want to make sure that I'm giving you all the information that you need. So that's the reason why. And I know accreditation is following me, so if there's anything else, or if you think of anything after the sessions are over with, you can send an email to mdeapps@mdek12.org, and we will respond. We try to respond, especially during the data submission. We try to respond within an hour. Max you would get is 24 hours, because obviously we're having to find out what's going on, but usually we try to respond within an hour or two at the most. So I'm gonna cut mine short so that Joanne can start.
You're fine. I don't have a full 15 minutes worth unless people have questions, so feel free to answer questions if needed.
Right. I don't see
Thank
any
you.
questions. So.
I don't see any questions either in the chat box. So if we do think of anything, for sure, we will definitely send you an email. And thank you so much for brightening up our afternoon this afternoon as well.
Okay.
We really do appreciate you taking out time to join us.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye.
Okay, Joanne, you are up and ready.
I guess I am. Do I have a way to share my screen?
Sure, you should be able to share screen at the bottom, and
Okay.
you should have access to that. Yes.
Let's see. Hey, here we go. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about something else before I dive into this. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Joanne Malone. I'm Director of Accreditation at the Department of Ed. Our office is responsible for monitoring the 32 process standards that are found in the Mississippi Public School Accountability Standards. Those standards are posted on our website. Our office is also the primary office that takes the bulk of the calls for people that don't know who else to ask for in the agency. They have a tendency to get routed to our department. So I like to a lot of times start my presentations off explaining that our office, because we take so many calls, a lot of times so many people are just wanting to know, where is it written that something that they have heard applies. And so most of our time is spent trying to point people to where something is, either in the accreditation standards or in the state board policies or state or federal laws. Because a lot of times you may think that you know that something, a lot of times it's just old wives' tale. I've always heard that we can't do this, or I've always heard that we have to do that. And so when we get those calls, sometimes we even on our end, we're like, you know what? I think I've heard that before too. Let me go figure out where it's written. So my request to anybody that calls our office is, like Sarita said, give us time to try to get you an answer. We don't have all the state statutes memorized in our heads. So sometimes we ourselves have to go and go, okay, wait a minute, now where is that written? And let's find exactly what it says. So what I have pulled up on the screen is where we are currently with this current school year, with things that have been waived or suspended for the upcoming school year as well as the previous school year due to COVID. This chart is posted on the MDE COVID webpage. But I do know there's so much stuff that's posted there that I can send this to Dr. Karmacharya if we need to, and just let her send it to you so that you'll have it at your fingertips.
Joanne, we have it posted on our website.
Okay.
And we've actually taken out what is not applicable to us
Okay.
out of this document, and then added the things that we've waived that are applicable to us.
Great.
So we have a running document. So if you can hit the highlights really of what is applicable to us, that would be great.
Okay. Well, and I have to say, you probably actually know more about what's applicable to y'all than to us, because I was definitely not going to walk the whole entire document. I was just going to kind of explain the layout of the document.
Yeah.
So that is perfectly fine. So of course, naturally, when we started this process, when we thought we were being sent home for just a week or two back in March, and we had to go to the state board, when the governor gave the state board the authority to do this with his executive orders, we of course had no clue that we would still be having these conversations 6-7 months later, and that some of this would impact this current school year too. So what started out as just a page or two has now morphed into, as you can see, a 33-page document. And what I have been charged with doing is just adding to this document after each of our state board meetings as new things come about, and we are having to go to the state board and reevaluate things that we maybe didn't think we were going to have to waive this year, and now we've decided, oh, well, maybe we are. Then I'm just continually adding to and updating this document. So Dr. Karmacharya, if you will too, just kind of make sure after each board meeting, if there's anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I can help make sure that you have the most current information too.
Sure, thank you.
So, and we thought it was all going to be just accreditation standards, but again, then it kind of morphed, and there are things that are in here that were not specific to an accreditation standard, but maybe to a state board policy or a state statute that we had the authority to do something with. So the first page, over on the left-hand column, it's just kind of the highlight of what the topic is. So this first one is the Mississippi Statewide Accountability System. And then we put in the second column really just to kind of highlight what the rule is, because over in the suspension or the proposed suspension, of course, in this particular chart, it's everything that you see in this chart has now actually been approved at some point. So the chart kind of looks like it's in past tense form, but that's the way it was presented to the board. But it's actually, like I said, it has everything that's in here has actually been approved. In some cases, we didn't waive the whole entire standard, but just certain aspects of it. And so that's why there's so much clarity in this column over here that you see over on the right. So last school year, the A through F accountability system, because we did not administer assessments, was waived as of right now. In fact, that was the call I was on just a little while ago and jumped off to this call. As far as we know this year, everything is still in play. We're still anticipating given assessments, but what that accountability is going to look like is still yet to be determined. But there's all kinds of conversations going on with the accountability task force from that standpoint. Process Standard 1 deals with local board governance. I'm just going to jump on to Process Standard 2 because that's probably one that y'all are very interested in. Process Standard 2 deals with your certified staff and having to have the proper certification to teach or either be administrator, etc. So last year we were in the process of going through what we call the personnel edit report and sending districts notification of what they were out of compliance with when we got sent home for COVID. And so what we did last year was say, okay, because of the chaos and we didn't want people to have to go back into school and have to deal with all the paperwork, we just suspended that for last year. We did ask the board to go ahead and suspend that for this next year. So really what that means, it's not that we don't want you to have certified staff. In fact, we are still definitely wanting you to have the certified staff. What we are saying is that when we run the personnel edit reports or when you guys are entering this stuff, if you have someone that's teaching out of field or without the proper certification, then you're still going to get that MCSAB flag. But we have, for this upcoming year, have decided that we are not going to ask districts to respond to those, what we call flags or citations. In other words, a district will not be cited for that particular standard this upcoming year. Process Standard 3 deals with performance appraisal system. That was one that we didn't think we were going to waive for this upcoming year, but we did have to go back to the board recently and say because of still not needing to be meeting in person, et cetera, they have asked the board to suspend that for the upcoming year also. I'm not sure the standard I'm not sure if that applies to you guys or not. Dr. Carmachari, is there a particular one you want for me to try to touch on?
You know, I think attendance was huge, and we finally got clarity around attendance.
Okay.
Student assessment was huge for us.
Okay.
There are a lot of things. Well, I'm trying to think what else came up. That was waivers around child nutrition. Y'all help me remember what else there was that was pretty big for us. Vanda, you or Jordan?
Let me go ahead and say this about compulsory in Standard 13. So first of all, Quentin Ransburg is now kind of in charge of the Office of Compulsory Attendance until they get a permanent director. So I will probably field most of the questions for him, but at the end of the day, the compulsory school attendance laws are still in place. I'm going to go ahead and jump, and then I'll jump back to this 180-day thing. We do have a webinar scheduled for Friday morning. We sent out some communication late yesterday afternoon. We did enact a new state board policy, policy 9.2, to help us deal with the virtual attendance piece, because in the past, attendance meant that student being physically present in that school building. But because of the need for so many schools and districts to go virtual or some type of a hybrid, we have redefined what it means to be in attendance. And because there has been a lot of confusion about that, we are doing a webinar Friday morning. And in fact, apparently there's a lot of people that are interested, because as of this morning, about 500 people had already registered. So I can't imagine how many people we're going to have on that webinar Friday morning. But we will try to walk through that policy. We're going to have lots of people from different offices, because that particular policy is not just an accreditation issue. It has to do with inputting the data into MCSAB, what instruction looks like for all the different scenarios of the hybrid, the synchronous, the asynchronous, and the data collection for that. So if you don't have that registration link to attend that webinar, I can make sure that Dr. Kramacharia has that, so that she can send that to you guys, and you can attend that Friday morning. It is my understanding that it, like all of our webinars, are usually recorded and then posted after the fact, because I anticipate there will probably be lots of questions at the end of that webinar. Okay, so then jumping back to this chart, the 180 days is a requirement that is in state statute. The state board has the authority to waive up to 10 days. The state board in the last board meeting did vote to waive, to give districts the flexibility to bump their school calendars down to 170 days for COVID-related reasons. That is not for weather-related reasons or for districts just at the end of the year say, hey, we're done, and call school off a week or two early. That is strictly for COVID-related reasons. If a school district either needed to delay the start of school or sometime during the school year has a need to take some more time off, and can go down to the 170 days versus 180. Any other particular standards you need me to hit on? I think that's technically my time slot, but
let me see if I have any questions. I don't see any questions.
Can I ask, just to clarify, sorry if I missed it in your explanation. Thank you, that helps to understand it's just COVID, 107 days, all of that stuff. I'm sorry if I missed this, but did you say, if that is the case, like if we are below 180 because of COVID and the governor's order, my question specifically is there a specific form that we fill out to request that exemption, or just?
No, as long as you are staying above the 170, then all you need to do is have your MCSAB coordinator go back into MCSAB and adjust your school calendar in MCSAB.
Good question.
You do not have to send out any type of request or paperwork to us. That was a question that was actually brought up in the board meeting, because they actually considered us granting them on a case-by-case basis, and they felt like that would probably be too much paperwork, too much work for us to have to do, because we figured the majority of the districts would ask for it anyway. And so they just made it across the board. So as long as it's COVID related, all you've got to do is just adjust your calendar.
But my understanding is the calendar in MCSAB cannot be, we're a grade 5 through 8 school. So we had to put pause on our grades 7 and 8, but not on our grades 5 and 6. Okay. So do we just say that none of the kids were there any of the days? Or is there a way to say 5th and 6th graders were here, but 7th and 8th graders weren't here?
I don't know the answer to that. That may be a question for Sarita, who was just on. But I will put a note in my thing, and hopefully we can address that question Friday. But go ahead and email that question either to me or Sarita, and we will try to get you an answer before Friday.
That's a great question, Kevin. Joanne, we had a couple of things that happened at the last board meeting, so that would impact us. One was kindergarten readiness, so they extended that assessment period from 30 days to 45 days, I believe. And then is there anything about 3rd grade, the literacy-based assessment for this year Do we know anything about that?
Seems like, I don't know the details of it, but it seems like there was something that went to the board.
And it seems like that one to me is like, we're on go for that one, right? But you,
All right, so there's the 45 days.
okay.
So for enrollment, hold on, I'm having to move stuff around my screen.
Good cause exemptions, okay.
Has something to do with documentation. I would shoot those questions to Melissa Beck.
Okay.
She, I believe, is fielding all the questions about the good cause exemption.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Are there any other questions, you guys? I know it's getting late. We have Avery yet to join us, but and it's been a long afternoon. But any other questions?
Lisa, I'm here.
Hey, Avery.
Hey.
I think my question might be directed more to the other charter leaders, but you mentioned earlier that there's accountability groups that are still meeting to iron out the details of exactly how accountability models will work this year, is my understanding of what you were saying. And so, but obviously, we should be using those to guide our instruction. And so I would just be interested in hearing from the other charter leaders in terms of how you're navigating that without having those. Like, in other words, like for my 5th graders, I'm setting their goal based on what they got in 3rd grade, because obviously they didn't test last year when they were can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So like the students who are in 5th grade now, like if they got a 3A on their 3rd grade math assessment, now that they're in 5th grade, is it appropriate to set their goal as 3B? Is that, and obviously it seems like some of those details are still being worked out by the accountability group. But in the meantime, school leaders, how are you navigating that? Or what are you doing to set meaningful goals for your students, given that there was no state assessment last year?
Is that question for me or for the other group, the others on the group?
Well, I guess my question to you is, am I correct in understanding that that is the type of thing that the accountability group is still working out? Like when you say they're still meeting, is that what they're meeting about? Or has that?
Well, I was going to say, they are trying, it is one of those things that they are looking at on the national level to determine the validity, the reliability of the assessments this year and the impact of COVID on those assessments. Alan Burra, I don't know if he presented to you guys earlier today. He is the one who leads the Mississippi Accountability Task Force. And so needless to say, I would need to direct those type of questions to him because I just kind of pop in and out of those meetings to hear. But the one I was on earlier today was with other states. And so, like I said, all the other states are trying to look at accountability as a whole and what kind of shifts may need to happen this year based on COVID.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, y'all, I got kicked out.
And I thought it was me that was going to get kicked out.
I must have been on too long.
All right, so if there's no other questions for me, I'll pass the baton to the next one.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Sure. Call me if you need me.
I will. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, Avery, the floor or the screen is now yours to speak to us about the Ethics Commission opinion.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if there are any specific questions. Lisa just said that there might have been some confusion with the advisory opinion that recently came out from the Ethics Commission that she referenced and I think provided to y'all by way of a link in a memorandum. So it's important to know, I think it was a board attorney for a local school district that requested that opinion. Mm-hmm. The question really that was being presented was whether a member of a governing board of a charter school could serve on the local non-charter public school board. And although that is an important question, I'm not sure if that's something that any of your boards are dealing with right now still or not. But they did say that they did opine that a member of the governing board should not serve on the local non-charter public school board. But what's not more important, but equally as important is a question that arose for the Ethics Commission to be able to answer that question. And it's very important because the question was whether a member of the charter school governing board is a public servant as defined under the ethics in government law, which was what we were saying when we discussed at the board meeting. We're not sure if y'all, at that time, this opinion had not come out, but we were not sure if the members of governing boards of charter schools fell under the ethics law or not, which is why I was saying it's really important that we find that question out, number one. And then number two, if they are a public servant, then are there ethics laws that would come into play in situations that the authorizer board found out, that about a governing board member possibly serving on the board who worked for a company who has a contract or a business relationship with the board. So the advisory opinion did answer that question, which is good that we at least know this now, and stated that, let me get my glasses on. And y'all have read it. I'm not trying to read to y'all, but I'm just, what the important statement there was, that the individuals that serve on the governing boards of charter schools is a public servant. And because they are defined as a public servant under the ethics laws, which are, in Mississippi Code, that person is subject to the restrictions of those laws, the ethics and governments law. And the other provisions too, there are conflicts of interest, but then there are other laws that come into play there. But for the purposes of the questions that have arisen recently, it's that conflict of interest law, which is 25-4-105. So what that means, and what they did state in the opinion, is that the governing board members are generally prohibited from having any interest in or official connection, whether it's direct or through a relative, with any business entity which contracts with or does business with the charter school. So that's why, now that we know that governing board members are public servants and fall under the ethics laws, then when there are situations that arise where there's a board member who may or may not have an interest, it's an obligation to find that out so that we ensure that there isn't a violation of state law that would have negatively affect the board's decisions or the charter authorizer board's decisions, which is why we requested the ethics opinion, advisory opinion most recently from the board itself. So that's why that was important. And Lisa just asked that I kind of come on and clarify that as to why that was an important opinion. And now we know that y'all do fall under those ethics and government laws. And we'll wait. We did submit the request to the Ethics Commission. We haven't heard back. We don't know if their opinion's being taken up at this most recent commission meeting. At least I have not been made aware. Lisa, you may have.
They are meeting Friday.
Okay, and it will be taken up?
I don't know that answer, but I do know that they are meeting Friday because I emailed to find out if they were going to meet. So not sure if they're taking up our question or not.
Okay. Well, as soon as they do answer that question, of course, we will make sure that the board gets that advisory opinion out to all of the schools so that they can provide those to their governing board members.
One thing I do want to clarify is that because our governing board members have now been defined as public servants and are subject to the ethics laws, they do have to do the statement of economic interest. And I put that in the letter. Yeah. And I did get the links back out after Amanda pointed out the other day that the links had fallen by the wayside when we transferred from the Word document to the PDF document. So you guys should have all of that information for your governing board members.
Yes, and that statement was included in that advisory opinion as well, that they were required to, the governing board members are required to file the statement of economic interest.
Mm-hmm. So this is your time, you guys. You have Avery. Now, she can't give any legal advice, but she can answer clarifying questions for you. So take advantage of this, few minutes that you have with her and ask her any questions that you still have about the ethics opinion, the one that we have an answer to and or the one that we don't have an answer to yet.
I don't know if I have a question. I mean, I don't know. I guess my understanding is that we were governed by nonprofit boards. And so this, I guess I'm concerned about our board members being considered public servants.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a question, but I know where the original question came from. And I think it's fine not to have board members serve on both of those boards. I can see that and understand that, but I think it goes a little bit far to say that our board members are public servants. So it's not a question there.
The reason, and if the advisory opinion addressed that when it walked through its analysis of determining whether they're public servants, and one of the major determining factors is the fact that the governing boards and these school districts are receiving public funds. So they are accountable for public funds. They also are obligated to meet the Public Records Act. So if there are any requests for open records, they have to comply with that. So they've been defined as a public entity under that act. They've also been declared a public entity under the Open Meetings Act, and they have to comply with all those open meetings requirements as well. So as part of the analysis and making that determination, although they're nonprofit boards, they do serve in many ways as public bodies. And because of that, it was determined by the commission that they are public entities or public servants. The more members are as the governing board.
So I think I have formulated a question as a follow-up to Amanda's comment and your comment, Avery. So what does that mean for our governing boards? Once they do this economic interest, what does that mean for them? So, and I don't mean this question to be sarcastic, but if I have a governing board member who happens to be a manager at Sam's, does that mean I can't shop at Sam's because that person is a manager at Sam's? What does that mean exactly for our governing boards, especially in a world where it's so hard to find governing board members? We want to make sure that we give them what that means for them.
Certainly. I don't think that, of course, the Ethics Commission would have to opine on all of these questions because the AG's office does not. They have specific authority to. But shopping at a store that might have an employee that works there that serves on the governing board is different than, I would think, different than having an existing contract with their employer or a business relationship. So I think it goes a little further than just shopping at Walmart or shopping at Sam's. It would be having a contract with an entity to provide services directly to that school, and that entity has a school board member who works for that entity in the area of the services that they're providing. And it would depend on the type of services, and all of those factual questions have to be presented to ethics to make that determination as to whether or not the exact relationship would fall within a conflict of interest issue or not. And the economic statement is, I believe, so that the Ethics Commission has an idea whether or not upfront, if there are any interests that would exist ahead of time, knowing that would prohibit them from serving on that governing board of the charter school. So I think that's the purpose of that economic interest statement.
So one last question to that. So the conflict of interest policies that we were required to develop with our charter applications and that were approved with those, are those now null and void, and this is what governs us, this opinion?
No, those aren't null and void. This is an additional layer of conflict of interest that we didn't know at the time that the governing boards of charter schools were considered public servants. We do now know that, so this just means that these laws also apply to any charter governing board, as they do to a local school district governing board.
Yeah, you heard earlier today, Alicia, I think it was Alicia, it might have been Judy, that mentioned the conflict of interest policies that your schools have to develop with respect to federal programming. And you guys had to do that as well. During your startup and application, you had to develop that conflict of interest policy for your school. But that's a separate document completely from a conflict of interest law that's in state statute that impacts public servants. Correct, Avery?
That is correct.
Okay. Other questions? Amanda, you have another question?
Okay, well, moving on. Thank you so much, Avery, for providing us with more details around that. And I'm sure if anyone has any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to Avery as well as Dr. K. I know it's late and you guys have been here and have weathered the storm with us today. So I will definitely not take up too much of your time. I just need a few minutes just to go over just a couple of updates with you.
If it's okay, I'm going to sign off.
Yep,
This is Avery.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Good to see all of you. Bye-bye.
I'm going to share my screen with you all real quickly. So on our website, Jordan is going to create some back to school resources for you. I'm in my Google Drive now just to kind of show you what that's going to look like. So within those resources, there will be a folder there for the charter school program grant recipients. Within that folder, you'll be able to see our claim reimbursement checklist that we kind of run through when we're working through the claim so that you'll know exactly which steps. It will be in PDF form there, so it will look a tad bit differently. As well as the CSP cost allowable guide. It will also be there as well for you too. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna come back to Epicenter. MDE resources. So today you saw the manual from the Office of Financial Services. And as they send us those PowerPoint presentations that they utilize today, I will put those within this folder as well too, so that you will be able to have that at your fingertips. The MDE dates to remember that they reference will also be there as well too. So just in case you just need to hop on our website and you're already there, but their calendar and their dates to remember will also be on our website within the back to school resources as well. Spending guide information. The CSP recipients received a memo, the memo that Ms. Campbell was relating to in regards to spending and so forth. There's also a letter in here. That's the memo there that was sent out to you all in regards to spending, goods, services, the thresholds, and so forth. The memo here from Ms. Gavin as well. So just some really great resources that you can always go to as you're determining your purchasing and so forth. And as Dr. K stated in the chat earlier, the federal decision-making tree will also be posted as well too. So definitely go back, check out these memos. If you have any questions and so forth, it will also be there. That's a great resource.
Can I ask a quick question about those?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Are those, if you can go back to that folder, that's just the federal stuff, right?
Yes, because you guys are exempt from state.
Yeah, okay.
Right, yes.
Okay. And last but not least, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mary for a resource as well. I know you guys have been dying to get the Epicenter calendar for submissions that you got last year. So it is now ready for you all, and it will be posted on our website. And starting this week, well, actually probably tomorrow, I will go in and start plugging in those submissions within Epicenter, so you will start then receiving those submission notifications. This calendar, since we are not meeting face-to-face and I cannot give you that information hand in hand like I did last year, Mary has been so wonderful in working through this calendar with me. Each time there is a submission and it does require a template or a download on your end, you will be able to click click the link there and be able to see what that template actually looks like. The documents that Alicia and Ms. Nelson referred to from the Office of Federal Programs, they are also there. I have also plugged in when we have our individual check-ins, not that it is a required submission with Epicenter, but just as a reminder, it is also there for you. So anytime within Epicenter, there is something that you will need to upload or submit, that link is provided there for you. So if you want to go ahead and get a head start on it, feel free to do so. But this week, I should have all submissions embedded into Epicenter. I did not want to go ahead and create submissions without showing you this information first, and you start getting all these notifications and going, Vanda, where did it come from? I did not want to do that to you. Also, keep in mind, this calendar can change. There may be some additional submissions throughout the year, some additional assurances based on accountability, compliance, or an issue that may arise, or just additional information that we may need. So just know that although this here is the calendar, if something does change and I do have to create a new submission within Epicenter, as I've done in the past, I will send you all an email correspondence to say this submission is new and that it is coming up as well. In addition to that calendar, you have a calendar companion broken down by month of exactly what's due, as well as an explanation for that submission. This explanation will definitely be within that description that you all see within Epicenter of what should be submitted. So just keep this handy, or to the person that is responsible for your Epicenter submissions within your school as well. And let's see, Mary, I think it is your turn now, and you can discuss the listserv that you've created for them.
Okay, Vanda, are you posting it? I am not seeing it. I created a listserv list of the listservs at the Mississippi Department of Education. The list should be very current as of this year, where you could go and sign up to listservs. You may not need that. You may be already signed up to all of those, but it could come in handy with new folks that come in to work with you. And there you have what to do and how to get to some of the listservs. I'm very happy to tell you that when Ms. Donaldson mentioned MCSAB Blast, it is on this list. So it's there, how to get to MCSAB Blast. And so that is all I need to tell you about that today. If you have any questions, see anything that's inaccurate when one of those changes or anything, if you'd let me know, I'd appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Mary. And last but not least, Mary is going to send out to you all and the other school leaders as well, just a quick little SurveyMonkey evaluation as you did last year on paper and pencil, but this year will be online, of course. I'm asking you just to complete the evaluation. Let us know what worked, did you gain any information, or if you need additional information or even some suggestions as we plan for the next back to school meeting, which will hopefully be face-to-face. Are there any questions around the calendar, Epicenter submission, resources, what's going to be posted on the website? Any questions?
I want to say something before we go. Okay, I want to say something before we close out. I just want to say thank you to Vanda, to Mary, to Jordan. They have done just an amazing job putting together all these resources for you guys so that you have everything at your fingertips. So we want to make sure you have everything you need, every resource you need, we can answer as many questions as we can for you. So I need to say a special thank you to them for coordinating this, putting it all together, and making this back to school meeting happen. Although it didn't happen in July like we had originally hoped, at least we got it done. And you guys have, I think, what will be just a plethora of resources that you can use to help you get through the year. So thanks to the MCSAB team, including Mary.
Thanks, Dr. K. Okay, any other questions? I know you guys have to go. So thank you again for attending today. I really do appreciate it, and you sticking through it with us as well too. As I stated at the beginning of the meeting, the recording will be posted along with the resources, so please feel free to access it at any time. I think it's going to be great for us. And if you need anything else, don't hesitate to reach out to us and let us know what we can assist you with.
One question real quickly. Dr. Boydshaw sent me an email on the financial, I think that was about the resource that Letitia shared. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
right. Mhm.
That'll be in those resources. So as Dr. Brumfield gets everything, she'll dump all those things into the file so you guys will have access to everything.
Okay, Amanda. Your random
All right.
question.
Yeah, it's random, and I understand if people are not going to stay on for this, but this is super random. But the CSP grant that was written, the entire 15 million, wasn't there something in there for like a charter school support office, like of some sort? I'm just curious to know if that, like, is that something that is still happening? Is it something that is not? What's the?
Can you elaborate on that, Amanda? I'm not sure what you're talking about, charter school support office.
So in some states they have like a separate organization that, like, there's the authorizing body and then there's like a support.
A state agency you're talking about, or an association?
Well, like, yeah, an association.
Oh yeah. No, there was nothing in there to create an association. There were two entities written into the grant, and Vanda can speak to this as well. One of them didn't apply for the technical assistance.
It was a technical assistance
it was
piece.
technical
Is that what I'm
assistance.
thinking? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay. Vanda, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, that's all I was going to say, was that it was written in for the technical assistance in ours.
Which is Mary and Champ Carter. So Champ Carter has done, they will do all of the, they did some of the board interviews. They did some of the, Morgan Ripsky and William did some of the board interviews. They did some training with our applicants. They're doing the toolkits. What else are they doing, Vanda?
They are providing the resources for the charter law that will be posted on our website as well too.
That's right. That's right. And then Mary has done technical assistance for existing operators, for applicants, and something else that she's done all that work with. It's late. My brain is shut off. So. Okay. But that it's not a random question. It's a good question. So, but technical assistance, which we went out for RFPs last year on those.
Got it. Yep. Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. All right.
Hey, Lisa, I just have one thing. This is Christy. Is there anyone, I guess, that maybe as part of one?
It's what? Did you cut out? You cut out, Christy.
One of the contracts.
Hey, Christy, you cut out, so you're going to have to repeat your question.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Is there any part in one of the contracts that that is current to assist with the filing of the FETS report? Because I know we've this will be year 5 that we have filed that. And even at year 5, it's always a challenge, especially, I mean, the biggest thing is really conversion of that file to upload. Yeah. So, you know, I guess I don't want other charters. I know that it's going to be a big deal.
Right.
After year 5, and I don't want others to think that it's as easy as just saving a document to a PDF, you know, because that's not at all what it is.
The answer is that unfortunately not. There's not anything that's written in the CSP technical assistance, and those contracts are really specifically for technical assistance around the CSP grant and the work of the, you know, those goals, you know, increasing the number of schools, the 3 or 4 goals that were written in there, and then the technical assistance that was written in, like the toolkits and all. But unfortunately not around the FETS. I don't even know that our technical assistance providers would have the skills, not that they couldn't do it, but they wouldn't even know because they're not experienced with it either, right? So my best recommendation would be to ask questions early and often of MDE And then all of you others ask questions early and often of Christy, because she's going to be the expert at this. So I wish there was, Christy. There's just not right now.
Well, I know the first, I guess it was 3 years, when Donna was there, you know, they assisted us in converting those files. And then last year, we kind of got a memo or an email at the, you know, right before submission to say MDE will not be converting.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's just the only challenge. And I remember having to work closely with Glenn last year, you know, on trying to get that converted. So, you know.
Yeah, you know, Donna is doing some consulting, and she might be willing to provide some services for you guys if you're interested. I can find out if, you know, the new charters, or Tamala, if you're interested, or other charters might be. She is doing some consulting, so she might be willing to support, which would be great.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to reach out to her. If anybody needs me to, just let me know.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Other questions?
Real quick, just to let you know, we have been getting a few calls and emails from some computer vendor that says we are contracted with the MDE to provide you all the new computers that you are supposed to be getting with this new grant, and so you need to tell us how many computers you're getting. And of course, we have said, well, you know, we'll go to you if we need a quote, but I said that, and she goes, no, MDE said that we're the sole provider of this, and they have a contract with the Department of Ed, and you have to tell us how many computers you need and all of that stuff. So,
yeah, I would kick that right back to MDE.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of scary, but y'all know it's going to be like that with all this money that's out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All righty. Well, thank you all so much, and please let us know if we can assist in any way. We will be happy to support. So thank you again for joining us today, and we will talk soon.
Yep. Y'all have a good evening. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.